Hogwarts, The Return of Turmoil. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Walker. On Saturday evening, Maureen went to the restricted section of the library. When he came to the big book across arcane time and space, he found a group of people just coming out of the restricted section. "We are going to Hogsmeade for a dinner party. Would you like to join us?" Maureen. Webbery greeted Maureen with great interest. "Dinner party?" Maureen thought for a moment and said, "No, I am not in the 3rd grade yet. I cannot leave the school according to the rules." Although he had left school countless times, he did not blush at all when he said this. "You can talk to Professor Kane. Maybe he can make an exception," Webbery suggested. "No, just have fun." Maureen shook his head. If they went to the dinner party, then there would be no one in this book. Maureen could go and see what was on page 229. "Let's go, Webbery, don't waste any more time." Pearson glanced at Maureen and urged. Since Maureen trapped Pearson with the stone curse last time, Pearson rarely acted arrogantly in front of Maureen. The other members of the club also recognized Maureen's ability and did not question it anymore. "Why are you in such a hurry? The restaurant will not close." Webley waved at Maureen. "Then goodbye, man. Maybe I will bring you some butterbeer." Magatha originally planned to stay with Maureen to study the Mercury retrograde problem, but was forcibly pulled away by Webley. The restricted book area soon became quiet, with only some books making strange whispers. "It's good to be alone." Maureen stood in front of the big book across arcane time and space. It was the first time he faced this book alone. When he came here, other members were often studying. Just as he was about to open this thick book, a strange feeling suddenly came from the book. "Huh? What's going on?" Maureen was a little surprised. This feeling came very abruptly. For a moment, he thought that he was going to go to a place full of monsters again. But the big book in front of him suddenly opened by itself, and the pages rustled, as if an invisible hand was turning the pages quickly, and countless words flashed and disappeared. Finally, the book stopped at page 229 by itself. Maureen was a little surprised. He hadn't even started yet, so why did the book turn the pages by itself? Maureen's eyes stayed on this page. The words on this page were still flowing as usual, like running water, but at a certain moment, all the words suddenly stopped. Maureen read a few lines of words and found that this was a text introducing the connection between space magic and time magic. There was also an illustration composed of small words in the middle. Then he was surprised to find that this illustration actually formed his appearance. "Hey? What is this?" Maureen looked at the other self in the page and felt very strange. Why is there an illustration of himself here? Maureen in the book looked at Maureen outside with a calm face. At this time, the words behind him suddenly crawled quickly again, piecing together a wooden staircase that led to somewhere unknown. "Follow me." Maureen in the book's illustration stretched out his finger, and the words formed these words at his fingertips. The other party glanced at Maureen outside the book, then turned around and walked up the wooden stairs and disappeared into the stairs. Why is it so weird? Maureen was used to the various strange passages and rooms that appeared in this book, so he didn't think it was a big deal to see this wooden staircase, but the book suddenly communicated with him, which was a bit unexpected. He looked at the staircase for a moment, and was really curious, so he followed him into the book and walked up the wooden stairs. The feeling of stepping on the stairs was very real, and his footsteps made a clattering sound, and his footsteps echoed slightly around. Maureen felt like he was climbing up from a cellar, with only walls on both sides and an exit on top. When he climbed out, the view in front of him suddenly became clear. He seemed to have come to a wide place, surrounded by flowing smoke, visibility less than 20 meters, and the person in the illustration just now was standing there waiting for him. "Why do you look like me?" Maureen couldn't help asking. "I am you," the other party said. What does this mean? Maureen didn't quite understand. He didn't think it was a big deal that the illustrations in the book could speak, but he was very curious that the other party suddenly appeared in his appearance. "My name is Walker." "Hey? Walker is my last name," Maureen said without thinking. "I know, I am you, you are me. You came here, didn't you come to find answers?" Walker showed an absent-minded look. Maureen looked at the other party. The other party was too similar to him, Whether it was the eyebrows and expressions or the different colored pupils, they were exactly the same as him. I'm afraid that even if Alton stood here, he couldn't tell which one was his grandson. I didn't say I was here to find answers, Maureen said doubtfully. But you have a lot of doubts in your heart. You want to know what the real Invisible Man is, what is going on in the depths of the Forbidden Forest, and what the two moons in the sky mean, Walker said. Maureen was very surprised. You are just an illustration in the book? How do you know? I told you, I am you, I know what you are thinking, Walker said. Maureen looked at Walker, and then looked around, feeling a little strange. The Bloody Baron called him here just to let him talk to a book? The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. I don't understand, what do you mean you are me? Maureen asked. I am the magic condensed from the words in this book, I can see through your heart, Walker said. Maureen became alert. I heard that only black magic has this ability, which can see through other people's minds. For example, the head he met in the warehouse of the Ministry of Magic's Department of Dark Magic Items with Arnold. Walker blinked and said, you should know the magic of legitimacy. Legitimate. Maureen thought for a moment and shook his head. I can't be legitimacy. Pangard wanted to know more in secret, but Maureen saw the other party's memory directly. He was very sure of this. I am not a wizard, but a special kind of magic. Even if you think I am black magic, it is also a kind of magic. I am the magic in the book to answer your doubts. Walker's tone was very calm. He didn't seem to reject the word black magic at all. Sorry. Maureen reacted and remembered that this book was a magic book written by the 4 founders of Hogwarts. It was too much to say black magic. Maureen asked again, will other people see another self when they turn to this page? Walker pondered for a moment, and his eyes flashed with a very strange meaning. No, the magic on page 229 only appears to special people. Special people? I'm special. Eyes. Walker pointed to his own eyes, then to Maureen's eyes. It contains powerful magic. You, like him, can't control it, so I came. Him? Who is he? Maureen felt that the other self in front of him spoke a little mysteriously. This feeling was too strange. He was actually talking to another self. You know him. Walker seemed to know everything about Maureen. I know him, I don't know. Maureen paused here, and he suddenly realized, oh, Evan. Are you talking about Arnold's son, Evan? Chapter 302 Defeat Yourself. Evan, the young wizard who couldn't control his magical power, chose to commit suicide in order to avoid disaster. When Arnok told this story, Maureen was shocked, because Evan committed suicide in front of Arnok, and Maureen couldn't imagine what Arnok was feeling. Maureen felt strange when he thought of this. He has always been optimistic and has always avoided thinking about what would happen if his power was out of control. Has he been here before? Maureen asked. Walker didn't answer Maureen's question directly, but continued, the power of you invisible people is unstable, and it is easy to lose yourself. Invisible people again. Maureen became cautious in his heart. He has been troubled by the problem of invisible people for a while. Arnok and his wife were the first to know that Maureen was an invisible person, and then they left in a hurry because of the 2 moons. Helena said she was going to find the answer to the invisible person and left too. The Bloody Baron said something inexplicably about real invisible people. It seems that everyone knows what a real invisible person means, but he, as an invisible person, doesn't know. Only when the Invisible Man appears, will across arcane time and space appear in the restricted book area of Hogwarts to prevent some special situations from happening. You have to learn 13 special time magic and space magic, and then find the answer yourself. Is this book specifically for the Invisible Man? This made Maureen feel a little unbelievable. This book suddenly appeared more than 10 years ago. So, it appeared specifically for Evan at that time? After Evan got into trouble, has this book been waiting for him? This book is not specifically for you. Although it appeared specifically because of you, when it appeared, any student can study the knowledge in this book, not just you. It's just that these 13 time and space magics are recorded on page 229 and are only open to the Invisible Man. Walker knew what Maureen was thinking, and he explained it very clearly. Oh, so. Maureen nodded. This book was originally written by the 4 founders. For them, knowledge should be shared by the students of Hogwarts, not monopolized by one person. Can't you just tell me? Maureen said, those questions, such as where are the 2 moons in the sky, what is deep in the Forbidden Forest, and why do I have this power? Maureen has always wanted to understand these things. I am a kind of magic, showing your appearance. I am you. In addition to magic, I know as much as you do. Walker said, learning 13 special time and space magic will help you not lose yourself. Maureen found that the other party was not able to answer his questions correctly. It was more like a logic written in a book. Although the text had life, it was not really alive and could not tell Maureen what he wanted to know correctly. Did the Bloody Baron call him here just to let him learn 13 time and space magic? Then what magic should I learn? Maureen gave up the idea of getting to the bottom of Walker, because Walker could not provide him with more information. Know yourself. Walker said slowly. What kind of magic is this? Maureen was puzzled. This is not magic, it is the first point you have to learn. Walker had taken out a wand from his pocket, which was exactly the same as Maureen's. Time magic and space magic are both very strange. Many people cannot recognize themselves under the influence of time magic. Some people will be killed by their other selves when they return to the past, causing time disorder. Because these people do not know themselves well enough, when they see their other selves, they think that they are pretending to be someone else using Polyjuice potion. Therefore, recognizing yourself is the prerequisite for learning time magic. Maureen nodded thoughtfully. Other people's time magic is useless to you, but your own time magic cannot be avoided. If you do not recognize yourself, it is easy to lose yourself when casting time magic and space magic. You will not be able to distinguish between the present and the past, where you came from, and where you should go back to. Walker continued. So what should I do specifically? Maureen also drew out his wand. He felt that what Walker said made sense. Defeat yourself. Walker said. Defeat yourself? This statement is a bit mysterious. But Walker waved his wand around, and the white mist around him suddenly dispersed. Countless words appeared on the ground, piled together like insects, forming a series of stairs. These stairs crisscrossed in the air, just like the stairs in Hogwarts Castle that kept moving. The place where Maureen was standing began to float in the air, forming the first staircase platform. 13 spells, 13 platforms. You can only walk to the next platform after learning a spell. Walker said, looking at the stairs and platforms in the air. Are these spells difficult? Are they LS level? Maureen asked. Walker shook the wand in his hand a little, and said, the magic of space and time is difficult, but what is more difficult than this is to defeat yourself. What does it mean to defeat yourself? Maureen stared at Walker. Walker was exactly the same as him, and even knew what he was thinking. Then he understood. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. Defeat you? Maureen asked. Yes, I am you. I know all the magic you know. Walker held his wand across his chest. The person who knows you best is yourself. Only when you know yourself and find your weaknesses can you defeat me with magic. Why do you want to defeat yourself? Maureen asked. I know your weaknesses, and you know mine. If I can use your weaknesses to knock you down, then other wizards can do it. What you need to do is to find your weaknesses and play to your strengths and avoid them. Maureen pondered. This way of learning by competing with himself is to understand himself better, which is very strange. He raised his wand and fired a stun spell directly at Walker. Maureen cast the spell very quickly and suddenly, but Walker seemed to have anticipated Maureen's method of casting the spell. His wand emitted a golden light and drew a circle in front of him. The stun spell disappeared in this circle. When Maureen was wondering, Walker turned his wand again, and then Maureen felt a slight whistling sound coming from his left. He turned his head, and before he could react, the red stun spell had already hit him. Huh? Where did this come from? Maureen felt very bad, and then his eyes went black, and he fell to the ground mutely. Walker pointed his wand at Maureen and whispered, recover quickly. After a moment, Maureen slowly opened his eyes and climbed up. What happened? Maureen touched his buttocks, which was a bit painful after the fall. I was hit by my own stun spell. Spell transfer. A golden light shone from the tip of Walker's wand. These lights were composed of tiny words, and soon formed a row of difficult spell instructions, including the swing amplitude of the wand and the degree of control of magic, as well as the control of wrist strength, the degree of transfer spells, etc. My magic level is the same as yours, but I have mastered this spell more than you. This is the first spell you have to master. When you learn this spell, you will stand at the same starting point as me, and then you will have a chance to defeat me. Walker said. Chapter 303 Spell Leap. This spell can transfer other people's spells. Maureen asked in surprise. Yes, the first space magic, transfer other people's spells to another place. When you cast other spells on me, I can use your spells to attack yourself. Walker explained. Awesome. Maureen couldn't help but exclaimed, this is even stronger than the rebound spell. Can any spell be transferred? Maureen asked with interest. It has something to do with your own magic ability. The higher the level of the spell, the harder it is to transfer. If the transfer fails, it means you are under your own spell, so it's best not to try to transfer a powerful spell easily. Walker looked at Maureen meaningfully. For example, the killing curse. Maureen was stunned. If he failed to transfer the killing curse, it would be like putting his life in it, which would not be worth the loss. However, it was impossible for him to defeat Walker now. If Walker mastered the spell jump, any magic he cast would be transferred to himself. Maureen didn't ask any more questions. He began to calm down and learn this very strange space magic. Walker did not attack Maureen again. He stood opposite Maureen. When Maureen did not understand, Walker would explain. Maureen soon found that the magic of spell transfer was more difficult than the magic of Wind Prisoner Dragon, which was almost theoretical. This kind of magic was equivalent to forcibly taking away other people's spells and then changing the trajectory of the spells, just like the Phantom Shift, making other people's spells disappear from one place and appear in another place. He tried for 2 hours and could not cast this spell. But Maureen was not discouraged. His greatest advantage was that he would not give up. It was not until the next morning that he finally managed to transform into faint golden light. What a complicated magic! Maureen stuffed a piece of chocolate into his mouth. Practicing magic requires physical strength, but he became excited again. Come on, try to cast a spell on me. Walker did not waste words. He raised his hand and fired a coma spell at Maureen. The coma spell was blocked by Maureen's golden circle. When Maureen was thinking about transferring the coma spell behind Walker, he suddenly felt something was wrong. It's over. Maureen's eyes went dark and he fell to the ground again. Resurrect quickly. Walker pointed his wand at Maureen's chest. Maureen got up with a depressed look on his face. He did not successfully transfer the coma spell like Walker. The gap is too obvious. Maureen couldn't help but mutter. Compared with Walker's spell jump, the spell jump he cast was like the sun and the moon and the firefly. Walker could transfer his coma spell, but he couldn't transfer Walker's coma spell. When practicing, can you cast a less powerful magic, such as a happy spell, so that even if I can't transfer and get hit by the spell, I can still make myself happy? Maureen suggested. Okay. Walker didn't object. This is much easier. The process of learning magic should be happy. Then Maureen was happy for a whole morning. Although he was very happy, Maureen felt terrible. He couldn't even transfer his own happy spell, and was hit by the happy spell every time. Forget it, I'd better go to bed first. Maureen yawned. He stayed up all night to study for a whole night and morning, but achieved little results. He couldn't even transfer a simple happy spell. By the way, can I only come here when others are not here? Maureen asked. No, page 229, it's specially for you. Walker said. Maureen shrugged his shoulders and ran to his dormitory to catch up on sleep with a tired look on his face. Maureen never thought that it would take so long for him to fully master a magic. When he studied magic before, he only needed to practice for a few hours at most. Even Arnold reluctantly admitted that he was a genius. But Maureen practiced spell transfer for 2 weeks, but he didn't succeed in transferring Walker's spell. As for him to defeat Walker with magic, it was even more impossible, because Walker could transfer any spell he cast. Even a powerful spell like the Wind Prisoner Dragon could be transferred by Walker. Walker knew Maureen too well. He was another Maureen. Walker knew exactly how Maureen's magic should be cast, when to cast it, and what the effect would be. In school, except for the professor, this was the first time that Maureen could not beat another person in magic. Really? When can I learn the second spell? Maureen sighed. Only when he defeated Walker could he learn the second spell. He was still a long way from this condition. In November, Hogwarts seemed to have fallen into peace again. Everyone had gotten used to the occasional explosions deep in the Forbidden Forest. The centaurs did not attack students again. Toby's solemn speculation was shattered. The stone arch outside the castle seemed to be just a statue. Nothing happened. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. School life is back on track, and Quidditch training has returned to normal, but every time it needs to be supervised by the professor. During the noon break in the sun, Maureen and Hugo were discussing the improved version of Weasley 2.38's retractable ears. In the past, the retractable ears needed a wire to connect them, but now they don't. Just throw the ear anywhere and hold the other ear at a distance to eavesdrop on the sound. It's very effective. Hugo handed a pair of ears to Maureen. Great. Maureen turned the two ears over and over. How far is the eavesdropping distance? 50 meters. Hugo grabbed one of the ears and pointed at the earlobe and said, "Do you see the little eye on this earlobe? This can also be used as a magic eye. This ear will find a place to hide and monitor others, and then use this mirror to see the person the ear sees." Hugo took out a small mirror half the size of his palm and tapped the mirror with his wand. Hugo's face appeared in the mirror, and he was pointing the little eye of the ear at himself. "James told me that this is just a test product and has not been fully sold yet. Anyway, I got 2 pairs of ears. I'll give this one to you and you can perfect it." Hugo said with a smile, "Think about it, we can let this ear crawl to Lily's dormitory." Lily knocked Hugo's head unhappily. "Then you're dead." "Just kidding." Hugo stuck out his tongue. Unran ran over from a distance and greeted them. "Next week is the first Quidditch match of this semester, Gryffindor vs. Ravenclaw. And Ran, who are you going to support?" Hugo said to Ran with a smirk. "Shut up, Hugo, it's embarrassing for you to talk like that." Lily glared at Hugo from the side. "I'm just telling the truth. Ran often comes to see Maureen, doesn't she?" Hugo yawned. Ran thought for a moment and said, "I don't know much about Quidditch, but it's good for anyone to win." Maureen didn't care about this. He wasn't paying much attention to Quidditch recently. He was more concerned about learning the spell of warp and how to defeat Walker. But there was another magnifying glass on Maureen's head. "Don't worry about it. Maureen won't be able to participate in Quidditch next week anyway. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304 The Missing Ghost. Why can't I participate? Maureen was so used to Magatha's elusiveness that he didn't even bother to reach out and move the magnifying glass away. "Dumbledore Cup, next Saturday, you have to go with us," Magatha said as a matter of course. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot about it." Maureen then remembered that there was a so-called academic competition next Saturday. But recently he had no interest in anything. All his attention was only on spell transfer and thinking about how to defeat another self. "You actually forgot about it? This is a very important matter." Magatha was shocked. "Do you know what this academic competition means?" "Yes, school honor and so on," Maureen said nonchalantly. He still knew nothing about the process of this competition. Magatha tapped her hand with a magnifying glass and frowned. She seemed to be thinking about something. After a moment, she said, "I came to see you today not just for this academic cup." But Hugo quickly interrupted her. "Don't talk first, let me calculate. You are here to study Maureen, right?" Hugo deliberately lowered his voice and imitated Magatha's crisp and puzzled voice. His expression was vivid, and he also clenched his hands into a circle, shining it on Maureen like a magnifying glass. Lily and Anran couldn't help laughing. They often heard Magatha say this to Maureen, and they were used to it. Magatha glared at Hugo fiercely. "If I were you, I wouldn't be so proud. Your homework in last week's potion class was terrible. You need to redo it. You'll know in the afternoon." Hugo opened his mouth and was shocked. He had to make up for last week's potion class because he burned the crucible during class. Hearing Magatha's words, he immediately felt weak in his heart and said in a panic, You, please don't talk nonsense, okay?" Magatha showed a look of disdain for explanation. "Okay, I don't have time to joke with you. I have serious things to do." Magatha played with her curly hair and said, "Mullen, I heard that you were the last person to see the Bloody Baron last time." Maureen nodded. "Yes, that's right." But he soon felt something was wrong. "Wait, what do you mean by the last person to see the Bloody Baron?" Hugo and Anran also sat up straight and looked at Magatha in confusion. "You really don't know?" Magatha looked a little proud, but then she stamped her feet and muttered, "Damn, I guessed right again." "What do you mean, Magatha?" Maureen asked. Magatha coughed, cleared her throat and said, "The Bloody Baron is missing." "Missing?" Maureen was slightly stunned. When did it happen? I don't know. No one would care where a ghost goes. After all, they are always floating around and don't have a fixed dormitory. Magatha disagreed. Maureen felt that something was wrong. How come the Bloody Baron just came to tell him about the search for across arcane time and space last time, and now he's missing? Maureen asked, then how did you know he was missing? Ghost meeting. The ghosts of Hogwarts hold a meeting every month to discuss ghost matters. It's nothing more than some weird ghost gatherings and activities. It's boring anyway. Magatha was not interested in ghost matters. She continued, usually the Bloody Baron presided over it, but the Bloody Baron didn't come yesterday. Those ghosts searched the entire school but couldn't find him, so Nick, who is almost headless, went to find the principal. Maybe he just got bored at school and went out for a walk. He will be back soon. Lily said from the side. It is possible. Although they are just ghosts, Principal McGonagall feels that they are members of Hogwarts after all. Ms. Grey has disappeared, and no one can get into trouble, even if it is just a ghost, so let me calculate this matter. Magatha narrowed her eyes and looked at Maureen suspiciously. I am not very good at calculating ghosts, because they do things without leaving any traces. If there are no traces left, my arithmetic divination will not work. But I heard that you are the last student to see the Bloody Barrow. Peeves, who likes to play pranks, called Maureen young master at noon that day. Many people know about this. Now when people see Peeves trying to play a prank on someone, some students will loudly tell Peeves I am Maureen's protection. Peeves will stop when he hears young master Maureen. Maureen has become the spokesperson for the Bloody Barrow. I was indeed the last person to see the Bloody Baron, but I don't know where he went. He was from Slytherin, and I was from Gryffindor, so I didn't see him many times. Maureen spread his hands, and he was telling the truth. I saw Nick very often. Then why did he look for you? What did he say to you? Magatha asked. Maureen pondered for a moment and shook his head. He just asked me about the Forbidden Forest. You know, I ran to the Forbidden Forest that day, and he was very curious about it. Just because of this. Magatha bent down, staring at Maureen with her big eyes, trying to use the magic formula to calculate whether Maureen was lying from his eyes. But she failed again. To others, Magatha was like a natural lie detector machine, able to calculate whether the other person was lying from their expressions, and what the real situation was. No one could lie in front of her. But only the existence of Maureen made all the arithmetic divination formulas that Magatha had learned invalid. The latest novels are first published on 69shoe.com. This frustrated Magatha. What else? Maureen didn't tell the truth. What Bloody Barrow said to him that day came to his mind again. He didn't plan to tell Magatha about it because knowing about the Invisible Man would put others in danger. Magatha took out Maureen's research manual, wrote a few words, and then said seriously, I don't think you are telling the truth. What do you think? I always thought you liked to be rational, but now you are going to be emotional. Maureen deliberately emphasized the word feel. Magatha was a little annoyed. She used magic formulas to calculate the other party's intentions when communicating with others, and never used unreliable things such as feel and guess. You pretend I didn't say anything. Magatha closed the manual with a snap. No matter what, I must do what the principal told me to do. I will observe you for a while to see if you are lying. Magatha glared at Maureen unwillingly. She gradually found that she would always miscalculate Maureen. On the contrary, if she guessed, she could always guess almost right. But with Magatha's absolute belief in arithmetic divination, she would never succumb to the word guess. No guess, absolutely no guess, even if the sky falls, refuse to guess. Be a principled and proud arithmetic fortune teller. After Magatha left, Maureen fell into deep thought again and began to take this matter seriously. The Bloody Barrow disappeared? But why? She walked away. Hugo turned his head and asked in a low voice, Maureen, do you know something? I don't even know when the Bloody Barrow left. Maureen did not lie about this. He didn't know the Bloody Barrow, and it was impossible for him to see what he was thinking at that time. Maybe he's looking for Helena. After all, Helena is the person he likes, isn't she? And Rand said. But Helena disappeared during the summer vacation. If the Bloody Baron wanted to find Helena, why did he wait until now? Hugo refuted in Rand's opinion. Maureen felt that Hugo was right. It was unlikely that the Bloody Baron left Hogwarts because of Helena. It was very likely that he was looking for the answer to the so-called Invisible Man, like Helena. So what is the answer to this Invisible Man? Chapter 305, Team Analyst. Magatha couldn't figure out Maureen, but at least she figured out things other than Maureen. For example, in the afternoon, Hugo's potions homework was indeed asked to be redone by Professor Theodore, which made Hugo angry and complained for the whole class. Maureen didn't listen to the class seriously for the whole afternoon. His mind was a mess. The smoke monster in the Forbidden Forest, the stone arch that suddenly appeared in front of the castle, the two missing ghosts, the answer to the invisible man. He always felt that these strange things must have some connection, but he just lacked the most important clue and couldn't connect them all. In the next few days, the news of the disappearance of the Bloody Baron seemed to spread like wildfire. Because Maureen was the last person to see the Bloody Baron, he became the focus of everyone's attention again. Many people came to ask about the situation of the Bloody Baron. Although the disappearance of the Bloody Baron had nothing to do with these people, many people were just curious. Many people speculated that Maureen might have been brainwashed by the centaurs after returning from the Forbidden Forest. Because the Bloody Baron knew something, Maureen dealt with him. Things were developing strangely. Maureen found that he couldn't do anything smoothly recently. Just like a fortune teller, he was entangled by Mercury retrograde. He encountered great obstacles in learning the spell jump. Although he mastered the spell jump, he couldn't beat Walker, which gave him a headache, and wherever he went, a group of people would point fingers at him, which made him very annoyed. On Friday morning, Poker came to question Maureen because he couldn't participate in the Quidditch game this week. You should take the Quidditch game as a top priority, Maureen. Poker was very annoyed. He has always aimed at the Quidditch Cup every semester. After training for so long, when it was finally time to play, Maureen failed. I don't want this, Poker. Maureen said helplessly, if I'm not here, don't we still have Sweet and Lily? Because their team has enough people this year, they didn't recruit substitutes. Philia graduated, and there are still 3 substitutes. Even if Maureen doesn't play, it's still enough to cope with it. Then we need to adjust the tactics temporarily. You have to know that the training these days is centered on you. Poker said with spit flying. Period. Then ask Professor Kane. If he agrees to let me stay in school to participate in the competition. Maureen pointed at Professor Kane, who was having a meal. I will. Professor Kane can't do this. He is the dean of our Gryffindor. He knows what the Quidditch game means to Gryffindor. Poker ran to the professor's special table in the hall with an angry face. But Poker obviously did not convince Professor Kane, because for Professor Kane, it was more important to take Maureen to the academic cup to gain experience. After all, this was related to the honor of Hogwarts and other schools, which was more important than the competition between colleges. Maureen ignored Poker. Many owls flew to the hall. He received a letter from the owl at home. It was written by his grandfather Alton, asking about Maureen's recent situation. Maureen hurriedly wrote a letter to his grandfather, telling him that he would go to participate in the Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration competition tomorrow, and then asked the owl to send the letter home. Tomorrow's Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration competition? Oh my god. I never knew you were qualified to participate in this competition? Damn, I have to go to Wales tomorrow to deal with some things, so I can't go. You should have told me earlier so that I could buy tickets in advance. Now the tickets are sold out. Alton replied in the evening, looking very upset. Maureen didn't quite understand what buying tickets meant. He didn't care about the competition at all these days. He didn't even know where the competition was. On Saturday, Professor Kane was waiting for everyone at the gate of the castle very early. He convened a training session for the GHRS club last night and explained the key points of the Dumbledore Cup to everyone carefully, but Maureen didn't listen to a word. He was completely focused on Walker and attached more importance to defeating Walker. The weather was very good today, sunny and cool in autumn, suitable for competition. When Maureen went to the gate of the castle after breakfast, he met Poker, who looked resentful, and was making the final bargaining with Professor Kane. There is no room for negotiation, Poker. Maureen has more important things to do. It's just that we are short of a game. I believe you can lead the other players to win. Professor Kane patted Poker on the shoulder with a firm attitude. One game is related to the problem of points. Poker attached great importance to this year's Quidditch game, because he was already in the 7th grade, and this was his last year to lead Gryffindor to participate in the game. He hoped to win every game so that he could have a perfect explanation when he graduated. But Professor Kane still did not change his mind. When Maureen walked over, Poker stared at him angrily for a long time, as if all this was his fault. In his opinion, Maureen should not join any genius club, but should focus all his energy on Quidditch. Okay, hurry up and get ready, Poker, you have to cheer up. Professor Kane encouraged, I hope to hear the good news that our college won before I come back. If you really want to hear this news, you shouldn't take my players away. Poker left angrily. Soon, all the members of the GHRS club who participated in the Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration competition arrived. Including Maureen, there were 11 students participating in the competition. Maureen also said hello to Rose and Wedbury. In the past, there was no limit on the number of people who signed up for the competition, but this year the competition system has been changed. Each school can only have 10 students participating, so everyone should be prepared. It doesn't matter if you lose. It's also very good to gain experience. Professor Kane led everyone to the school gate and explained as he walked. 10? But we have 11 people, right? Maureen asked, puzzled. Oh, Magatha is not good at transfiguration, she won't participate. Professor Kane said. I'm the team analyst. Magatha walked beside Maureen, and she would take out a magnifying glass to observe Maureen from time to time. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. What does it mean to be a team analyst? Maureen didn't quite understand the mechanism of this competition. Professor Kane said it last night, didn't you listen? Magatha asked in confusion. Maureen really didn't listen. He was distracted last night, thinking about what his weaknesses were and how to beat Walker, which led to him not knowing what to do in the game. It doesn't matter. Newcomers are bound to be nervous. I'll explain it again. Professor Kane was very patient. Magatha is our secret weapon. She has to be there every time she doesn't participate in the game, because she can calculate the weaknesses and advantages of the opponent when casting spells, and help you win. Do you understand? Oh, that's it. Maureen suddenly realized, and then couldn't help but look at Magatha twice more, because he had been harassed by Magatha since the beginning of the school year. He was always annoyed with Magatha and almost forgot that the arithmetic fortune teller was a very scary existence. With just one look, he can use magic formulas to calculate the magic that the opponent is good at and the magic that he is not good at, and then tell his own people the situation so that they can make timely adjustments when they go on the court. Know yourself and know the enemy, and you will never be defeated in 100 battles. Does every school have someone like Magatha? Maureen asked curiously. Of course, now is the age of magic information. When people who don't know each other compete together, it is crucial to have information about the opponent. Therefore, each school will probably find an arithmetic fortune teller to accompany the team to analyze the opponent. But there are too few real arithmetic fortune tellers. Many students who choose to take arithmetic fortune telling courses only learn the basics. There are no more than 10 wizards like Magatha who can predict the opponent with just one look. Professor Kane admired Magatha's natural ability, but Magatha was not satisfied with her ability because she always miscalculated a person. Magatha is our advantage, but no matter what, in the competition, it is not Magatha who plays the field. She can only provide you with advice. The real victory still depends on your own magic ability. Professor Kane said. Chapter 306 Student Parents. Professor Kane's words were very pertinent. Last year, Magatha also came to analyze the opponent. However, even if she saw through the opponent's weaknesses, she could not help Pearson and Constance get a better ranking. Excellent wizards know how to play to their strengths and avoid their weaknesses. Even if you know the weaknesses of his spells, it is difficult to defeat him if your magic level is not as good as his. Professor Kane said earnestly. Play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses? Maureen was a little depressed. He was in a bad mood recently because of Walker on page 229. Although he has basically mastered the magic of spell jump, he has not defeated Walker yet and cannot learn the second spell. Walker knows Maureen too well and knows where Maureen's weaknesses are. Maureen cannot really play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. According to what Walker said, Maureen does not know himself well enough. They left the area of Hogwarts and stopped on the path to Hogsmeade. Professor Kane took out a piece of parchment from his pocket and tapped it with his wand. On it was written invitation to the Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration competition. Then he said, hold on tight, everyone. Everyone put their hands on the parchment. Professor Kane tapped the parchment again. A force hooked everyone and disappeared on the spot. When the constantly rotating scene in front of them returned to normal, they had appeared in a wide Muggle stadium. It was obvious that the wizards had requisitioned the Muggle stadium. Many wizards were discussing something enthusiastically. There were at least hundreds of wizards in the audience, and more wizards kept coming in. So many wizard spectators. It was the first time for Maureen to come to such a place. Seeing so many wizards was still novel. In addition to some wizards who paid for tickets to watch the excitement, there are also some wizard headhunters. Professor Kane said. Maureen now finally understood what Grandpa Alton wrote in the letter about the tickets. It turned out that this kind of competition was open and anyone could come to watch. What is a wizard headhunter? Professor? Maureen asked again. Wizards who specialize in finding talents for magic companies. Excellent students are always sought after. Professor Kane said with a smile. They will come to watch every competition. If there are students who are favored, they will most likely sign a wizard employment agreement with you before graduation. Professor Kane pointed to the wizards who were dressed very prominently. Many wizards had nameplates hanging on their chests. Maureen saw a witch sitting in the front row of the audience. She took out a blue flag from her handbag with Monroe Magic Boots written in gold letters on it. In addition, Maureen also found some bright and eye-catching brands such as Seiko Magic Ice Cream Shop, Greedy Witch Restaurant, One Night Dream Potion Shop, etc. He even saw the sign of Weasley's Trickster. He recognized the man in the dragon leather jacket as George Weasley, who was waving at Rose. The sponsorship of the competition is all provided by these magic companies. If they want to advertise, they have to do this. Professor Kane looked around and said to everyone, okay, if there are parents coming to watch the competition, I will give you 10 minutes to have a good chat with your family. Because this kind of competition is open to the public, many parents of the contestants will come to watch the competition and cheer for their children. Parents of some teams in the club will try to buy tickets to watch their children's competition. A blonde lady ran over excitedly and hugged Erdal from their club. Erdal looked a little embarrassed. Mom, don't be like this, it's embarrassing. I understand, I just can't help it. The lady looked at her son with tears in her eyes and shook hands with Professor Kane excitedly. In addition to him, there were other parents of contestants who had been waiting here for a long time. When they saw their children appear, they immediately ran over from the audience. Magatha and Webbery's parents also came. Webbery was talking to his father with a playful smile. His father looked very similar to Webbery and spoke directly. I have a feeling you will win this year. Webbery's father, Mr. Harris, said loudly, I went out to wash my hair today, how about you? I washed it too, Dad. Webbery put his hands on his hips and laughed with his father, I washed it 3 times. Great. Webbery's father was very satisfied, and then he shook his head. His hair looked thick and hard, washing your hair more can make you smarter. The father and son laughed again with a little nervousness. When Webbery was in the club, he liked to say all kinds of inexplicable things. I didn't expect his father to have such a strange temper. Magatha was also held by her parents and asked questions. I'm not participating in the competition, you don't have to come. Magatha frowned and said. You are an indispensable member of this team, of course we have to come. Magatha's mother, Mrs. Hope, is very young, with a very good figure, and has the same temperament as Magatha. Magatha, last time you said that your research subject for Mercury retrograde came. Magatha's father, Mr. Hope, looked over here excitedly. Here I am, Dad. Magatha glanced at Maureen proudly, that one, the silly one. How could I be silly? Maureen felt guilty and quickly turned his eyes away, moving to the side to let Professor Kane block him. Is it that boy? Magatha's father poked his head in with interest, wanting to see what Maureen looked like. Oh, he seems younger than you. Dad, he's not my boyfriend. Magatha said a little annoyed. I haven't told you yet. Mr. Hope said with a smile. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Oh, do you think you can hide your thoughts from me? Magatha glared at her father angrily. Also, what makes you think that witch who sells crocodile bags has a better figure than Mom? What? You actually think her figure is better than mine? Mrs. Hope grabbed Mr. Hope's ear. Oh, no, I just thought about it casually. Let go, it's not a good influence in public. Mr. Hope grinned. I love you, dear. Magatha, check him for me. Mrs. Hope looked at her daughter. He didn't lie. Magatha nodded with satisfaction. Dad loves you the most. Mrs. Hope then let go of her husband's ear, clapped her hands, and said proudly, very good, I'll spare you this time. Mr. Hope touched his ear a little depressed. Why did I give birth to such an unlucky child like you? Really, I don't remember any of my ancestors who are proficient in this thing. Where did you inherit it from? With Magatha as a daughter, It seems that there is no privacy in this family, and nothing can be hidden from her. I am your biological child. Magatha said angrily. You don't have to doubt this. Mr. Hope looked helpless. He often thought so, and every time Magatha would righteously cut off this idea. Maureen looked at Magatha's parents, and then looked at Webbery and others. Almost all the parents of the club members came, either fathers or mothers. He even saw Rose's father, and they were all encouraging their children to cheer for the competition. Maureen stood alone beside Professor Kane, and suddenly felt envious. In the entire club, Maureen was the only one who came without his parents. Even Alton was too busy to come. Chapter 307 5 times the ticket price. Maureen, aren't your parents here? Professor Kane found Maureen standing behind him, and he felt a little strange that no family members came to see him, because such a large-scale competition means a stepping stone to a student's future, and parents attach great importance to it. Parents? He couldn't even remember what his parents looked like. Maureen was silent for a moment, shook his head, and felt a little strange. He didn't think there was anything wrong with this matter, but when he saw Magatha and Webbery talking to their parents, he suddenly felt very uncomfortable. Didn't you tell your family? Professor Kane asked. For such an open competition, many parents will come to cheer. My grandfather has something to do today, he can't come. Maureen responded softly. He didn't care much about this competition at first, and only wrote to his grandfather yesterday morning to tell him. Alton replied last night that he had to go to Wales to deal with some things today, and Alton didn't have time to buy a ticket because of the rush. Professor Kane patted Maureen on the shoulder and comforted her. It's okay, don't think too much. He looked at the time and said to everyone, Okay, everyone, we should get ready. The parents waved to their children excitedly and said a few more encouraging words. Then everyone returned to Professor Kane. Magatha trotted to catch up with Maureen. Whenever she went out with Maureen, she would definitely do research with Maureen. Where are your family members? Why can't I see them? Magatha looked around. She also hoped to study Maureen's parents to see if she could find Maureen's secret. They are busy and didn't come. Maureen lowered his head. He was holding Day in his arms. Day was stretching. Everyone was accompanied by their parents, but he was not. Even Alton didn't have time to come. But at this time, an anxious voice suddenly came from a distance. Maureen, wait a minute, Maureen. Alton squeezed through the crowd and ran over here excitedly. Grandpa. Maureen stopped, turned around and looked at Alton in surprise, and immediately ran over. Great, we made it, we made it. Alton wiped the sweat off his forehead and stretched out his big hands to hug Maureen. I thought you were busy today. Didn't you say you didn't buy a ticket? Maureen's heart swelled. He found that it was a great thing to have family members accompany him at this moment. I didn't buy a ticket. I wanted to see if I could find someone I know in the Ministry of Magic to let me in, but you just told me yesterday. I wasn't prepared and didn't know who to find. I could only buy a ticket from Monkston. He resold the ticket, which was simply extortionate, 5 times more expensive than the normal ticket price. Alton looked very annoyed. He likes to take advantage of the situation. 5 times the ticket price. Maureen hesitated. Grandpa, you don't have to. Alton waved his hand and smiled happily. It doesn't matter. 5 times is 5 times. Every student's parents will come to this kind of competition, and I can't be an exception, otherwise I'm afraid you will be alone. Alton helped Maureen straighten his collar and helped him straighten his casually dressed robe. He touched Maureen's head and said, I didn't know you were eligible to participate. Next time, you must tell me in advance so that I can buy tickets and arrange the itinerary as soon as possible. Maureen nodded, looked up at Alton's kind and happy expression, and his chest bulged. It's good to have a grandfather. As for whether his parents come or not, it doesn't matter to him anymore. Alton happily chattered some more, then looked at the time and said apologetically, Maureen, I have to go now. I can't postpone today's work. Things in Wales are very troublesome. I will try to finish early and see if I can make it back. I heard that the contestants are all elites. You have to work hard. It doesn't matter if you can't win. Grandpa is proud of you. I will, Grandpa, don't worry about me. Maureen was satisfied that Alton came, and he didn't want to delay Grandpa's work. I'm sorry, next time. Next time I must accompany you all the way. Alton hugged Maureen guiltily, then exchanged a few words with Professor Kane, and left in a hurry. I can't figure it out. Magatha muttered. She had been thinking about studying Maureen through Alton, But she didn't succeed. Your grandpa is really weird. He spent 5 times the price to buy a ticket, talked to you for a few words, and then left. Webley said in surprise from behind, "What a waste of tickets. He might as well not come. Why spend this money?" "This is not a waste of money, Webley, if you have a higher EQ." Professor Kane glanced at Webley unhappily. Both Webley and Magasha are people with IQ but no EQ. Some things can't be measured by money. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. It can't be measured by money, that's right. Maureen looked at his grandfather's back and smiled knowingly. For Alton, he would not be stingy about anything related to Maureen, even if he had to spend 5 times the ticket price to see Maureen and talk to Maureen. Okay, we should go. Many wizards are watching us. Professor Kane said to everyone, if someone contacts you individually and wants to sign an employment agreement with you in advance, remember to let your dean know. These merchants will use various excuses to lower your salary, such as a stone transformation spell is not perfect, the tableware is deformed and flawed, but considering your overall quality, they will give you an internship opportunity first, and increase your salary based on your performance, and so on. Don't believe them, they are all the merchants' rhetoric. Most of these words were said to Maureen and Rose, and others had already known this. Professor Kane greeted some wizards he knew along the way. After all, he was a professor at Hogwarts and had taught many students. Many of them were graduates of Hogwarts. Of course, there were also some foreign faces. Some of the sponsors' brands were written in French with English underneath, and some of the words on the brands were not understandable to Maureen at all. After a while, Professor Kane continued, the students who can come here to participate in the competition have a high level of magic. We professors know best how much salary you students can get. You should talk to them with us so that you will not suffer a loss in salary. In previous years, some students secretly signed the agreement without knowing it, and later regretted it. You should know that the wizard's employment agreement includes the unbreakable curse. If you don't go to work in the company after graduation, it will be very troublesome. Both Maureen and Rose knew that the unbreakable curse was a very powerful magic. If you violated the agreement of this spell, you might be entangled by some evil curses at the least, and in serious cases, you might lose your life. Of course, you don't have to worry too much. As long as you sign the agreement with our professor as a witness to the unbreakable curse, they will not dare to do anything wrong. We will reduce the risk of this spell and will not let you guarantee it with your life. If you want to terminate the contract, we will stand by you. Professor Kane warned seriously. After thinking for a while, he added, but try not to breach the contract. It's not good. The current magic rules are really complicated. But Maureen thought again that he was only a sophomore and should not need to worry about this problem. No one would sign such a contract with a sophomore. Chapter 308, The Battle of Arithmetic Diviners. Professor Kane took Maureen and the others to the registration office. A wizard in a green leather coat saw them and immediately waved and said, "Good morning, Professor Kane. We'll be waiting for Hogwarts." "Good morning, Fast. Long time no see." Professor Kane stretched out his hand and shook hands with the wizard, then handed him the invitation letter. "The weather is nice today." Fast browsed the registration list on the invitation letter, raised his head and glanced at the participating students, and finally his eyes fell on Maureen, and asked puzzledly, "Maureen Walker, such a young contestant? 12 years old?" Professor Kane. "Oh, yes, a rare seedling, very talented." Professor Kane rubbed his hands, patted Maureen's shoulder with satisfaction. "Bring him here to see the world in advance." "That's good." Fast signed his name, returned the parchment to Professor Kane, and pointed in a direction. "Go forward, telephone booth number 1. I hope Hogwarts will have a good result this year." After saying this, Fast looked around again and found that no one was paying attention, so he lowered his voice and said, "I'm sorry, as the organizer of the competition, I shouldn't favor any school, but I have always hoped that our school will win first place in this competition, Professor. I'll do my best, Fast," Professor Kane said with a smile. Professor Kane walked along the track of the gymnasium. There were 3 bright red telephone booths in front of him. Each booth had a different school emblem on its door. Maureen also saw the name Hogwarts on the first booth. Fast is from the Ministry of Magic's Academic Research Society. He used to be a student of our Hogwarts. He is a very smart person. Professor Kane explained to Maureen and Rose, because besides the 2 of them, Magatha and the others knew about it in previous years. When Professor Kane was about to open the door handle of the telephone booth, a man in a black and luxurious wizard robe walked out of the Durmstrang telephone booth next to him. When he saw Professor Kane, he smiled generously and said, "Professor Kane, long time no see. Professor Raffle." Professor Kane also smiled and greeted, but Maureen noticed that Professor Kane's smile was a little uncomfortable. Durmstrang School has been shining in the Dumbledore Cup in recent years. Their school has been the first for 3 consecutive years. Maureen also knew this. It seems that Hogwarts is in good spirits this year. Professor Raffle glanced at Constance and others, focusing on Constance and Pearson. He looked at Maureen in surprise and said, "Such a young student is also participating in the competition." Professor Kane did not answer Raffle's words. He turned to Constance and others and said, "You go in and rest first." At this time, the door of the Durmstrang telephone booth was opened again, and a tall boy with gray hair walked out. He looked about the same age as Constance. When he saw Constance, he greeted Professor Kane very enthusiastically, and then extended his hand to Constance on the other side. "Constance, long time no see, do you remember me? Sawyer Brandt." But Constance did not respond. He didn't even look at Sawyer, and directly turned the door handle of the telephone booth and walked in. Pearson and others followed closely, and it seemed that they didn't want to waste any words with Sawyer. Raffle shook his head and said meaningfully, "Hey, Professor Kane, your students are not very polite. They should respond to other people's greetings. I'm very sorry, they need to prepare." Professor Kane waved his hand behind his back, motioning Maureen and others to go in. Magatha on the side generously stretched out her hand and shook it with Sawyer. "Long time no see, Brent." Then Maureen saw another very strange scene. Magatha and Brent's eyes collided in the air, but the two of them kept a smiling expression throughout the whole process, without frowning or moving their faces, as if they were cast under a spell of immobilization, and they didn't even blink. The whole process lasted for a full minute, during which even Professor Kane and Professor Raffle didn't speak. Maureen probably knew who this Brent was. He could shake hands with Magatha so tacitly and without any expression. It was easy to think that the other party was an arithmetic fortune teller. Last time, Magatha and Professor Victor had a silent exchange between arithmetic fortune tellers. This time, Magatha and Brent had a silent contest between arithmetic fortune tellers. No wonder Constance was too lazy to shake hands with Brent, because if she made more movements in front of an arithmetic fortune teller, then what she was thinking and what she was going to do next would be calculated. Finally, Brent took his hand back first. Magatha looked at the Durmstrang telephone booth again. Brent shifted his gaze from Magatha's hand to Professor Kane, and then to Maureen, who entered last. Then he uttered a light "huh," and seemed a little doubtful. Professor Raffle felt something was wrong. He wrapped his coat tightly, broke the silence, and laughed again. Then Professor Kane, "I won't bother you anymore." After that, he hurriedly pulled Brent back. "Huh?" Magatha snorted with disdain. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. Professor Kane also hurriedly pushed Maureen and Magatha into the phone booth. The phone booth was cast with a traceless extension spell, which turned into a very gorgeously decorated lounge with comfortable sofas and round tables. Constance and others had already found a seat and were waiting for Magatha. "How is it, Magatha?" Professor Kane asked impatiently after closing the door. "That Brent is just a half-baked arithmetic fortune teller." Magatha looked very confident. "I interfered with his algorithm, performed reverse arithmetic on him, and stopped him from arithmetic fortune-telling on Constance and others in time. I think it will take him 2 or 3 hours to figure out the algorithm, and the competition will have already started by then." "Can this algorithm still be interfered with?" Maureen asked in surprise. "Of course you can. If you don't want to be figured out, you can cast a complex blocking magic, just like the firewall of a Muggle computer, if you understand Muggle computers. Professor Kane and I have already used blocking magic to protect you. Brent can't figure it out for a while." Magatha sat on the sofa, took out a notebook from her school bag, and said as she wrote, "Lafor also cast a blocking magic. What a pity. If he were smart, he would know that his blocking magic can't stop me at all. Give me 10 minutes, and I can break his blocking magic and calculate all the traces I saw." Maureen was secretly amazed. He really admired Magatha's terrible arithmetic and divination genius. She was simply perverted and unreasonable. Chapter 309, Can't See Each Other. That's good. Although Brent is also very good at arithmetic divination, he can't compare with you. It's always good to keep some cards in your hand before the competition. Professor Kane was relieved. It was obvious that he trusted Magatha's ability. Then he said to Constance and others, "You should familiarize yourself with the schedule first and make preparations. Magatha will tell you about Durmstrang later. Durmstrang is your biggest opponent. You must pay attention." "Got it, Professor." At this juncture, even the arrogant Pearson and Constance were very serious. They didn't have the contemptuous look they had towards Maureen before. After all, they were defeated by Durmstrang last year. There was no reason to look down on them. "Oh, right, the schedule." Maureen quickly took out a copy of the information distributed last night from his school bag. He still didn't know how the competition was conducted. Professor Kane didn't expect him to get any place in the competition this year, so he didn't tell Maureen too much. Maureen had too many things to do recently and didn't pay attention to it. Durmstrang's lounge. Loeffler no longer had the generous smile he had just shown to Professor Kane. His face was a little gloomy. "No clue? You have been studying how to deal with Magatha for the whole year, right? Even if they cast a blocking magic, you should be able to break it." "I don't know, Professor." Brant looked at his draft paper with an unwilling look on his face. "I am indeed studying Magatha. Although she is very powerful, I am targeting her after all. She can only block me for half an hour at most this time, but after I looked at the very young junior students next to Professor Kane, I suddenly couldn't figure out anything." "You can't figure out the name of that person?" Loeffler asked. Brant shook his head. "I can't figure it out. It's like a ball of paste poured on my head, a mess." "His name is Maureen Walker, Loeffler." In the corner, a man in a brown wizard robe said grimly. He sat in the corner, as if he had merged with a wall. If he didn't make a sound, you wouldn't even know that there was a person there. "Is that junior student Maureen Walker?" Raffle crossed his legs, picked up a glass of sake on the table, took a sip, and asked, "Are you here for him?" "For him, but not for him. I'm here to confirm one thing." The wizard in brown wizard robes wore a black cowboy hat with a brim pulled down very low. No one looked down on his appearance. "What is it?" Raffle asked. "You will know." The wizard laughed a strange laugh, which was very cold and made other students in Durmstrang feel a chill inexplicably. "Then how did you know he would come here?" Raffle put down the wine glass and looked at the wizard in the corner. "This is thanks to the kid from the Lestrange family, Carlo, who transferred from Hogwarts school to your school." The wizard said in a gloomy voice. He spent some gold coins and learned from other students in Hogwarts that Maureen Walker would also come to participate in this competition. "Oh, Carlo Lestrange, I understand." Raffle nodded thoughtfully. The other students of Durmstrang did not dare to speak when Raffle was talking to the wizard. They even breathed carefully, as if they were afraid of the wizard. After a moment, Raffle asked again, "That Maureen Walker looks like a second-year student. What can he be capable of?" "Don't underestimate him, Raffle." The wizard reached out and lowered the brim of his hat again. "How could a boy who was favored by Bobby Singer be so simple?" "Bobby Singer, is it him?" Raffle looked very surprised. He really took this matter seriously. "Tell me about it." Raffle pulled his collar and put his legs down. Maureen was still browsing the competition system of the Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration League and found that the rules of this competition were actually very simple, but also very competitive. At the beginning, it was nothing more than students from 3 schools drawing lots to decide their opponents, and then they would compete in magic in the form of wizard duels on the field. However, because it is a test of each student's transfiguration level, only transfiguration is allowed to defeat the opponent, and offensive spells are not allowed to be used against the opponent. For example, the stunning spell and the petrifying spell can only be cast on the transformed object, not on the player. There will be 5 large stones on the field, and one of the most special stones is called the keystone. 2 people are required to use their own transfiguration to seize the control of the keystone and turn it into something they have drawn, which may be a table or a bear. Then, the keystone is transferred to a specific position to win. This keystone is very special, and it takes 1 minute to completely transform. 2 people transform a keystone at the same time, which is like a rally. Sometimes a player transforms half of the keystone, and the control will be taken away by the opponent, and then become the transformed object drawn by the opponent. It is also possible that after the transformation, it will be intercepted when flying to your position. The remaining 4 stones are used for attack. The contestants can use their magic wands to smash the 4 stones directly, or turn them into any animals to attack the opponent. The opponent can also seize control of the 4 stones and defend or attack in turn. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Because it takes 1 minute to transform the foundation stone, the contestants only need to use 4 stones to delay the opponent for 1 minute, transform the foundation stone and return it to its original position. This is different from the magic spell competition. The magic spell competition can use offensive spells such as coma spells to compete in spell skills and the level of avoiding spells. The transformation competition focuses more on the transformation skills of the contestants and the ability to control the transformed object. This is very interesting. Maureen couldn't help saying. Transfiguration is very competitive, and the focus is on the 5 stones used for transformation. Who has a higher level of transformation can be easily seen by transforming the stones. Interesting, but not easy. I haven't trained you because I've been busy with their business recently. You should see how others control it this year. Then, next year or the year after, I believe you will shine. Professor Kane said. I know, Professor. Maureen was eager to try. Magatha had already raised her head and said in confusion, Professor, it's a bit strange. What's wrong? Magatha. Professor Kane asked quickly. Professor, I found that I can't seem to see what Laffer is going to do next. Magatha was a little puzzled. Can see? What does that mean, just like you can't see Maureen? Professor Kane asked. Maureen spread his hands to show his innocence. Magatha glanced at Maureen and shook her head. That's not the case. You should know that experienced wizards know how to disguise themselves to avoid being seen through. For example, they will deliberately make some unnecessary expressions to mislead the arithmetic fortune teller. I just calculated that Raffle will leave the gymnasium and go to a Muggle building, as if he is going to do something. Leave at this time. Professor Kane said in surprise. The competition is about to begin. He can't leave at this time. Are you sure you calculated it correctly? I'm sure that I calculated it correctly, so I find it strange. Magatha checked her formula and she was also puzzled. Chapter 310, Transfiguration Contest. Professor Kane couldn't figure it out either, so he comforted her. It's okay, Magatha, you've done a good job. It's not surprising that Raffle and the others know how to disguise themselves. But I've always been able to see through this kind of disguise. Magatha was a little dissatisfied. Everyone is making progress, Magatha. I know you have better talent than other arithmetic fortune tellers, but many wizards will be wary of people like you, especially those from Durmstrang School. You don't have to think too much. When the competition comes, do your best and see as much as you can. Professor Kane signaled Magatha not to be too anxious. Then Professor Kane told everyone about the skills of competing for the cornerstone and what they need to pay attention to. Because Magatha's arithmetic fortune telling can only start when she sees people, and it can't be calculated without seeing people, so when they first go on stage, Magatha can't take all of them into consideration. Everyone, come on. Arithmancy analysis is just some advice for you. You really have to rely on yourself to defeat your opponent. We have trained for so long just to get back the honor that should belong to Hogwarts. We must get the top 3 in the Dumbledore Cup and live up to Mr. Dumbledore. Professor Kane gave an inspiring mobilization, and everyone's enthusiasm was mobilized. Even Maureen, who had no experience in participating in the competition, was moved. At this time, there was already a lot of noise outside, and more spectators. The competition started at 10 o'clock in the morning. Fast came to inform Professor Kane to draw lots. There were a total of 30 contestants, one-on-one, divided into 15 groups. The winners would directly enter the next round, and the losers could only leave with regret. In addition to not meeting their own school in the first round, the rest were uncertain. Professor Kane quickly came back with the results of the draw and distributed the number plates to everyone. Maureen got the number 9, and his opponent was number 22. It was not clear who it was for the time being. At this time, the whistle outside had already sounded. Professor Kane clapped his hands, attracting everyone's attention, and said loudly, "Okay, for Mr. Dumbledore, everyone, work harder." The Muggle Stadium is a green football field, but it has long been divided into 4 competition venues by wizards. Sometimes a game ends in 1 or 2 minutes, and sometimes it will last for several hours, depending on the opponent's magic level, so it is impossible to have one game after another. Basically, 4 games are held at the same time. It is uncertain when to go on the field. It depends on which of the 4 competition venues ends the game first, and the next player will go up, so everyone has to wait for the referee's notification. For the first 4 players, Pearson, The number 2 player from Hogwarts went on the field in the second field. 5 huge stones have already been placed on the field. Except for the most important cornerstone, which is black, the remaining 4 stones are all white. Russ O'Neill, the president of the Ministry of Magical Research Association, was a wizard with a short beard and hair that was meticulously combed with hairspray to make it shiny. He pointed his wand at his throat and his voice became as loud as thunder, resounding throughout the stadium. I hope this is a fair competition. O'Neill looked at everyone in a loud voice. Everyone fell silent and looked at him. Mr. Dumbledore is a great wizard. We hold this competition to commemorate Mr. Dumbledore and thank him for everything he has done for our wizarding world. Now I declare that the 18th Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration competition will begin now. As soon as he finished speaking, many people cheered. There were 1,000 or 2,000 wizard spectators. Apart from the Quidditch game, it was the first time that Maureen saw so many wizards gathered. Many wizards were shouting, especially the parents of students, who shouted the most enthusiastically. "Constance, don't be careless," Professor Kane shouted. "I know, Professor." Constance was still very confident in her magical ability. Constance has already walked onto the second competition venue. His opponent is a black-haired boy from Boxburton's School of Magic. Boxburton's magic is in France. Maureen doesn't know much about this magic school. It is said that the management system is very strict and the students taught are also quite excellent. It is well known in Europe. The boy's name is Dominic. Magatha quickly calculated on the paper, he is good at transformation of furniture and animals. He may use ropes and other transformations to deal with Constance. Before he went on stage, I only took a look at him and couldn't calculate too much. Can you calculate the result of the game, Magatha? Maureen asked curiously. No, they cast a blocking magic. They will avoid such things. You know, to prevent arithmetic fortune tellers from participating in competitions and gambling. Otherwise, I can open a casino. Magatha shrugged. The gifted arithmetic fortune tellers are already very powerful. If they calculate it in advance, there will be no suspense. The people in the Ministry of Magic will naturally have ways to prevent such things from happening. Have you ever gambled with anyone? Maureen said with a smirk. No one should dare to gamble with you, right? I don't do such boring things. Magatha looked serious and stared at Maureen seriously. I am more focused on studying magic, such as a guy who I can't figure out. Maureen pretended not to hear anything, looked away and put his eyes back on Constance. The competition between Constance and Dominic has begun. Constance is really good. He had experience in the game last year and knows how to proceed most effectively. Generally speaking, no one will take the initiative to move the cornerstone. After all, it will take 10 seconds to transform the cornerstone. This 1 minute is enough time for the opponent to do many things, so it is the right way to use the other 4 stones to control the opponent first, and then deal with the cornerstone. When the whistle sounded, Constance had already quickly waved his wand and directly competed for 3 stones. The 3 stones on the field were pulled over by him and suspended around him. Dominic was a bit slower in reaction, and he only grabbed one of the stones. The latest novels are first published on 69shoe.com. Constance's magic wand emitted a red light, and the 3 stones were immediately stretched and deformed, turning into 3 sharp-toothed black dogs, roaring in the air and rushing towards Dominic. Dominic did not have an advantage in the number of stones, so he immediately cut a stone in front of him into 2 halves. One of the stones was stretched like gluten, becoming extremely soft, and then turned into 3 dog chains to put on Constance's 3 black dogs. Dominic waved his magic wand again and turned another stone into a stream of quicksand, which spread on the ground and quickly spread along the ground to Constance's feet, trying to catch Constance. Constance swung his wand slowly, and when the dog chain was about to catch the 3 black dogs he had conjured, the 3 black dogs suddenly spun violently, all shattered into fine stones, which passed through Dominic's dog chain, and then condensed into 3 black dogs again, and continued to pounce. But at this time, the quicksand controlled by Dominic was about to wrap around Constance's ankles, and it seemed that Constance was about to trap Constance. Constance disappeared from the field with a snap sound, and apparated behind Dominic. He turned his wand again, and the 3 black dogs suddenly exploded, forming a series of black smoke, which instantly submerged Dominic. Swish! Constance clenched his hand again, and the black smoke turned into thin ropes, which wrapped around Dominic's wand. Dominic was shocked, and the wand in his hand was swept away. He suddenly lost his fighting ability and was thrown off the stage by Constance again. By the time he got up, Constance had already pointed her wand at the cornerstone, turning it into an exquisite door that fell behind him. Hogwarts wins. A bald old wizard on the stage shouted out the result expressionlessly. So this is how the transfiguration competition works. Maureen had a preliminary look at this kind of competition. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Transfiguration Competition. All the audience cheered. Constance handled the whole process perfectly and smoothly. She defeated her opponent without giving Dominic any chance. Many wizard headhunters in the audience stretched their necks, and some took magic cameras to take pictures of Constance's appearance. Constance looked at the dejected Dominic proudly, and then walked towards Professor Kane. "Great, Constance." Professor Kane looked very happy, his eyebrows twitching, and gave Constance a thumbs up. "Thank you, Professor. This person's transformation level is not good enough, and it's not a big deal to defeat him." Constance won easily. It only took 2 minutes to defeat Dominic and become the first contestant to advance to Hogwarts. He has the qualifications to say this. Maureen nodded thoughtfully. Constance did demonstrate to Maureen, who was participating for the first time, how to use transfiguration to defeat the opponent. He couldn't help but think, if he and Constance were to face each other, what would he turn the stone into to defeat Constance? This kind of transfiguration competition tests the contestants' on-the-spot reaction ability and transformation ability. Constance is undoubtedly the best among them. Ralph from Durmstrang not far away has been staring at Constance, and Brent beside him is also quickly calculating Constance's overall advantage. Obviously, Constance is one of the people Durmstrang values the most. But when Constance came down, Professor Kane cast a blocking magic on Constance to prevent Constance from being seen through by the opponent. Maureen found this competition quite interesting. He saw how other outstanding students used transfiguration to defeat their opponents without using offensive spells. Everyone is good at different transfiguration, so when competing with different opponents, the spells used are different. Constance's competition only took 2 minutes, but the other competitions did not end so quickly. The transfiguration performed by everyone on the competition stage was varied. Most of the stones would be transformed into ferocious animals to attack, and some people directly transformed the stones into hail and many other things. Maureen even saw 2 students from Durmstrang and Boxburtons on stage 3 who simply turned stones into 2 long knives and chopped them violently on the field, making clanging sounds and sparks flying. The referee was worried because he had to be prepared at all times. If someone was killed, they would stop him. The match on stage 1 ended after 10 minutes. The stage was covered with various plants, as if it had turned into a tropical rainforest. The students from Durmstrang were wrapped in vines by the students from Boxburtons like mummies, with only a pair of eyes showing and moving around in fear. On stage 2, other groups were already competing. At this time, a sandstorm was blowing on the stage, blocking the view. It seemed that both players had turned 4 stones into crushed sand. The 2 people were parading quickly, flashing back and forth, and it was unknown whether they should take action or not. The 2 40-meter machetes on the 3rd stage had not been retracted. They seemed determined to use the machetes to decide the winner, but they could not hit their opponents no matter how hard they chopped. Somehow, the 4th stage turned into a pond. Both Durmstrang and Boxburtons were drowning and calling for help. The referee was still discussing whether to fish them out. "Professor, during the competition, in addition to the 4 stones, can you also transform the stage under your feet?" Maureen asked curiously. "Yes, as long as you used transfiguration to knock down your opponent, you can transform anything. The 4 stones are just tools for you to transform, but they are not the only tools. If you see a sparrow flying in the sky, if you have the ability, you can also transform the sparrow to join the battlefield," Professor Kane explained. No wonder. Maureen looked at the pond on the number 4 stage and found it funny. Just now, the Durmstrang contestant wanted to turn the stage under the feet of the Boxburtons contestant into a swamp, while the Boxburtons contestant wanted to turn the stage into a quicksand pool. As a result, the 2 spells collided on the ground, and somehow the entire stage turned into a puddle, and then the 2 landlubbers drowned. Although the scene seemed to be very chaotic, The Transfiguration competition was surprisingly exciting. Many wizard headhunters were looking around, looking for talent suitable for their companies. Other people were booing the number 3 stage. Obviously, this Transfiguration competition was too monotonous, just like a fight between barbarians. The number 1 and number 2 stages were moving very fast. Every time someone from Hogwarts came on stage, Professor Kane would cheer them up. But unfortunately, 5 people went up one after another. Except for Constance, the other 4 were defeated. 3 were defeated by Durmstrang and 1 was defeated by Buxbuttons. Don't be discouraged. You should know that none of the people who can come here to compete are ordinary people. After his students were defeated, Professor Kane did not show a disappointed look, but patted their shoulders with great confidence and continued to encourage them. The matches on the 2nd and 4th stages had ended at the same time, and the referee had called the names of Maureen and Pearson. Okay, Pearson, hurry to the 2nd stage. Your opponent is from Durmstrang School. Remember, don't look down on your opponent. Professor Kane patted Pearson's shoulder. He still had high hopes for Pearson. I understand, Professor. Pearson nodded and said proudly, I will knock them down. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. He glanced at Maureen again and said indifferently, Professor, the one who should be worried is the newcomer. Professor Kane turned around and said to Maureen patiently, Maureen, relax, don't worry. It doesn't matter if you lose, this is your first time on the field, try to see how your opponent transforms, adjust your transfiguration in time, and don't worry too much about getting hurt. If there is any danger, the referee will stop it. Okay, Professor. Maureen glanced at his number plate, which required him to transform the foundation into piano, and he already knew who his opponent was, from Buxbuttons Academy. Maureen didn't think much about it, he was not unfamiliar with this kind of transformation contest. When he was learning magic with Arnag before, Arnag almost always trained him in this way. He always had to think about how to deal with Arnag's teasing. He had a lot of experience. When he walked past the 3rd stage, he found that the 2 contestants on the 3rd stage were still chopping with their 40-meter machetes with great pleasure. Some cracks had already appeared on the machetes. The 2 referees sat on the chairs, holding their chins with their hands, and yawned. It was obvious that they were a little impatient with the Transfiguration contest on the 3rd stage. Maureen wanted to laugh, because the 2 people from Durmstrang and Buxbuttons were really straightforward. They didn't change their transformation methods. They were probably both stubborn. When their tempers got angry, they just went all out. Whoever retracted the 40-meter machete first would be the shrunken Scroot. Maureen drew his attention back to his opponent. His opponent was a tall, silver-haired girl named Melanie. She was very beautiful. It seemed that Buxbuttons Academy was full of beautiful women. It seemed to be true. Chapter 312 The Youngest Player. Is there no elite in Hogwarts? Why send a junior opponent? Melanie spoke with a French accent, but in English. She looked at Maureen in confusion, not quite understanding Maureen who was on the stage. Not only her, but even the referee next to her was a little suspicious. Maureen was the youngest among so many contestants, which surprised them a little. Because normally the contestants are 6th and 7th grade students, they have a relatively rich knowledge of transfiguration. Oh, I'm here to see the world. Maureen shrugged his shoulders. Anyway, Professor Kane always said that to him. Many spectators also saw the young Maureen on the stage. They were stunned at first, and then laughed. You know, in this kind of transfiguration competition, the contestants are all students. The older the contestants are, the more proficient they are in controlling magic. The second-year students have not learned much magic at all. How can they compete with the senior students? There was a restless atmosphere in the audience, and then some people exclaimed, and shifted their eyes from the 4th stage to the 1st stage. It was obvious that the contestants there were more interesting than Maureen. Maureen was not surprised. On the 1st stage, Pearson was competing with others. It was estimated that many wizard headhunters might know Pearson who performed outstandingly last year, so they would naturally call for Pearson to appear. The witch referee confirmed Maureen's identity and then shouted, The identity of the contestant is fine, the competition begins. Melanie took out her wand, waved it in front of her chest, and performed a wizard duel salute. She said seriously, My name is Melanie. I will not underestimate any opponent. Even if the opponent is a junior contestant, I will do my best. Please give me your advice. Maureen couldn't help but secretly admire. Although they were both elites from their respective schools, Melanie didn't have the arrogance of Pearson and others. The contestants of Boxburton School were still worthy of respect. "My name is Maureen. Please give me your advice." Maureen also imitated the other party and performed a wizard dual salute. He felt that he should respect others. Melanie did give her all. After Maureen was ready, she had already waved her wand and used the traction spell to control all 4 stones, leaving none for Maureen. The 4 stones spun in the air and turned into 4 sharp-beaked cardinals. The 4 sharp-beaked cardinals attacked Maureen from different directions. They flew very fast, like a red blade in the air. Their long sharp beaks seemed to cut through the air, leaving a whistling sound. Maureen stared at the 4 sharp-beaked cardinals. When the other party attacked, he had already disappeared from the spot and appeared behind Melanie. He pointed at Melanie's feet and shouted, "Change," in a flash. A white light sank into Melanie's feet, and 2 ropes immediately emerged from Melanie's feet and wrapped around Melanie. But Melanie reacted quickly. When Maureen disappeared, she immediately apparated away and appeared on the other side. Then she waved her wand again, and the 4 sharp-beaked cardinals turned in the air and continued to attack Maureen. Very fast. Maureen muttered to himself, but he had more experience in fighting than Melanie. After all, he used to fight with Arnok on the top of the mountain every day, and he was often electrocuted. In the process of teasing Maureen, Arnok was training Maureen's magic. Arnok's speed was much better than Melanie's. When the sharp-beaked cardinal controlled by Melanie pecked at Maureen, Maureen simply didn't plan to dodge this time. He directly waved his magic wand and pointed at the 4 cardinals, and shouted, "Escape." A red light spread out into 4 rays, enveloping the 4 cardinals. Maureen took away Melanie's control over the cardinals with just a thought, and then the 4 cardinals turned a corner and flew towards Melanie. How is it possible? Melanie was shocked. Generally speaking, it is difficult to control other people's deformed objects, especially in this situation. Melanie focused her attention on her cardinals. She never thought that Maureen would do this. Melanie cried out inwardly that something was wrong. She waved her wand at the ground, and the hard ground was immediately pulled up like a carpet, blocking the sharp-beaked cardinals in front. But what she didn't notice was that one of the sharp-beaked cardinals had already been turned into a cloud of sand by Maureen, which wrapped around Melanie's body along the ground. At this time, it was too late for Melanie to apparate. Her feet seemed to be integrated with the ground, and it seemed that they were sealed by cement, unable to move. Melanie waved her wand vigorously and finally broke Maureen's magic, but at this time the referee had already shouted, "Hogwarts wins." How could it be? Melanie gritted her teeth and stared at Maureen. Maureen used the sand to entangle Melanie for a minute, and then easily turned the cornerstone into a piano, and plucked the keys with his hands, and the piano made a crisp sound. "It's a pity that I can't play the piano." Maureen shook his head, gave Melanie a bright smile, and then walked off the stage. It was not difficult for Maureen to compete with Melanie. Although he was a little younger, he had experienced a lot. With the teaching of Arnok, his control over transfiguration was much stronger than Melanie. Melanie looked at Maureen's back unwillingly. She had never underestimated her opponent from the beginning, but she did not expect that the opponent's magic level was beyond her imagination. He won without giving her much chance to resist. Is he really just a junior student? Melanie felt very strange. The latest novels are published on the 6th and 9th books. The 2 referees also looked surprised. They looked at each other. Maureen's transfiguration was seriously inconsistent with his age. Maureen's competition with Melanie ended almost faster than Constance, but the audience's attention seemed not to be on him. All of them were on the number 1 stage, so no one noticed that Maureen had defeated Melanie. He didn't care. When he passed the number 3 competition platform, he saw 2 40-meter machetes still swinging in the air. The 2 boys from Durmstrang and Boxburtons were sweating profusely. The machetes in the air were blunt, but they still waved their wands indomitable and would not stop until they knocked down their opponents. "I can't stand it anymore. Let's end their competition quickly." When Maureen passed the number 3 competition platform, a yellow-haired wizard referee had a grim face. This was simply a meaningless competition. I don't know if the 2 stubborn people had a grudge or something. Why did they have to transform into 2 machetes to chop each other? Hold on, Raphael, we are the referees, we can't interfere with their competition." Another old witch slowly picked up a piece of cake and took a bite. She was very calm, then handed the cake she had bitten to the yellow-haired wizard and said, "Would you like a piece of matcha cake?" The yellow-haired wizard shook his head and refused the cake, then asked, "Do they have a grudge against each other?" "Well, I know these 2 brothers. They are brothers, and then went to different schools. Now they want to compete with each other. The old witch showed a nostalgic expression, and her gold-plated teeth sparkled. It's good to be young. Their father likes to collect all kinds of knives, so they plan to use machetes to prove themselves. Prove a fart. Prove whose 40-meter machete is sharper. The yellow-haired referee said angrily. He was bored hosting such a boring competition. Maureen tried hard to hold back his laughter. It turned out that there were two brothers on the stage. No wonder they had such straightforward ideas. Different schools met in the first round. This kind of fate can't be said to be brothers. Maureen was looking at the two long swords with great interest. His eyes inadvertently swept across an exit passage opposite. Suddenly, he saw Raffle from Durmstrang walking there stealthily. Everyone was competing at this time. What was Raffle, a professor from Durmstrang, doing there? Chapter 313, Arrogant Army Will Be Defeat. When Maureen saw Raffle, he remembered Magatha's calculation that Raffle would leave, and he felt a little strange. Maureen followed the direction Raffle was heading, but saw a wizard in a brown wizard robe and a cowboy hat standing at the end of the passage, seemingly waiting for Raffle. When Maureen saw the wizard slightly raise his head, he was suddenly a little suspicious. He seemed to see that the man looked very much like Lucas? But because the other party was wearing a hat, Maureen couldn't be completely sure whether this guy was Lucas. He was about to see clearly, and several staff members walked over and blocked his sight. Maureen immediately squeezed through the crowd and ran quickly towards the exit passage. He wanted to make sure that he was not mistaken, and then find a way to attract the attention of other magic staff and catch this wizard fugitive. But when he ran to the exit passage, he found that there was no one there, even Raffle was gone. Damn, did I see it wrong? Maureen searched along the passage. There was a toilet next to the exit passage, and then there was a staircase leading to the auditorium, and there was another road leading to the exit. Maureen ran towards the exit, but didn't see any figure. There was only a wizard security guard at the door. Maureen hurried over to ask, "What? Are you asking about Raffle from Durmstrang?" "No, no one walked out of here just now." The wizard waved his hand. "Did he apparate away?" Maureen said to himself. "You can't apparate into the gymnasium, nor can you apparate out, otherwise someone will evade the ticket. You can only apparate in the gymnasium. Which school are you from? Are you lost?" The security guard asked. "No, I'm just asking casually." "Thank you." Maureen returned and climbed up the stairs. He stood in the audience and looked around, looking for the shadows of the two of them in the audience, but there were only some cheering wizards in the audience, and various wizard billboards floating around, but there was no trace of Raffle and Lucas. Maureen searched for a while, but still didn't see the figures of Raffle and Lucas. He had many doubts in his heart. Now I am not sure whether that person is Lucas. We were far away at that time, and the face looks very similar. If it is Lucas, how dare he come here? You know, there are many Ministry of Magic staff in this place, and Lucas is a fugitive. If he is recognized, he will most likely not escape. When Maureen looked around, he suddenly saw Raffle in the crowd. At this time, Raffle was already walking hurriedly along the track of the Muggle Stadium towards the students of Durmstrang, but there was no one else around him. Did I really see it wrong? Maureen didn't quite understand. He stood in the audience for a while, then hurried down and ran towards his own contestant area. When he went back, the atmosphere seemed a little wrong. Professor Kane looked a little helpless, and the other students looked a little discouraged. Magatha frowned, and when she saw Maureen walking back, no one said much. "What's wrong?" Maureen asked curiously. Magatha whispered, "Pearson lost." "Huh? Lost?" Maureen was a little surprised. Although Pearson was a little arrogant, his magic talent was still quite high. He also achieved very good results in this competition last year. How could he lose? He was unlucky. He met Zimmerman, the first-place winner of the Dumbledore Cup of Durmstrang last year. He lost a little. Magatha glanced at Pearson in the corner and didn't say anything else. He lost miserably. Webbery continued to speak for Magatha without restraint. His brain was different from that of ordinary people, and he didn't have any scruples when speaking. Pearson thought that after a year, he would definitely be able to defeat him. He was still talking nonsense during the duel, but he was knocked to the ground by a black wolf that the other party conjured up. "Shut up, Webbery." Magatha glared at Webbery. "Oh, I see." Maureen sat down next to Webbery. No wonder when he participated in the competition just now, all the audience's attention was drawn to the number 1 stage. It turned out that the contestant on the number 1 stage was last year's first place winner Zimmerman, and it was naturally more interesting than him, a junior. But Maureen was not surprised at all that Pearson lost. How did the saying go? Pride comes before a fall. Melanie from Boxburton School knew to go all out when she met the younger Maureen. When will an arrogant person like Pearson learn to curb his arrogance? Pearson sat in the corner, looking a little pale, with a scar on his face, and the clothes on his chest were torn by claws. Professor Kane was helping him treat the wound. He stared at Webbery angrily, but Webbery was still smiling and didn't look at him. It's okay, everyone cheer up, Pearson, don't be discouraged, there will be another chance next year. Professor Kane seemed reluctant to criticize Pearson now. He also understood that Pearson was defeated by his arrogance, and decided to find a good opportunity to talk to Pearson after returning. Professor Kane looked at the students he brought with him and said, now everyone has participated in the first round of the competition. Let me see, the people who advanced are Constance, Weber, Rose, and Erdo, 4 people, not bad. Those who failed should not be discouraged, every contestant here is not weaker than you, everyone go back and reflect. Oh, by the way, Maureen, are you okay? Did you get hurt during the competition just now? Professor Kane remembered Maureen at this time. Pearson met Zimmerman just now, attracting everyone's attention, but ignoring Maureen's situation, and it is unknown whether Maureen won or not. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. I'm fine. Maureen thought for a moment and said, but I made it. Everyone looked at Maureen, looking a little surprised. You, a junior, beat the elites from other schools. Pearson snorted. He was still in a bad mood because he lost the game. He was even more upset when he heard Maureen's words. Maureen spread his hands and was too lazy to explain. He felt that there was no need to compete with such an arrogant guy like Pearson. But Professor Kane asked in surprise, really? Did you really win? Maureen picked up his number plate, which had the word second round qualification on it. When he walked off the stage, the number plate changed by itself. Great. Professor Kane was overjoyed, his eyebrows fluttering with joy. So we have 5 students entering the second round. Very good. I thought you would be stage fright for the first time participating in such a competition, but I didn't expect it, haha. Great. Great. Professor Kane patted Maureen's shoulder heavily and praised him very much. Pearson clenched his fists. He didn't advance, but Maureen did. He couldn't accept it. It's just shit luck. The level of students at Boxburton's is so low. What's the big deal about winning? Pearson gritted his teeth and said. Pearson. Professor Kane shouted seriously, you lost the game. I took care of your mood and didn't want to say anything to you. Don't you understand why you lost? You are always arrogant and look down on your opponents. How can you beat them? The students of Boxburton's are no worse than you. The 3rd place last year was from their school. Have you forgotten that you also lost to the people of Boxburton's? Pearson's face twitched and he was scolded so hard that he couldn't say anything. Chapter 314 The Mysterious Man in the Stadium. Professor Kane continued, Moreland is from our school. We should all be happy for him for winning. Luck is also a part of strength. Don't ignore it. Except for Pearson, no one present would look down on Moreland. After all, Moreland's magic level is obvious to all. Pearson himself didn't even make it through the first round, so he really had no right to say anything bad about Moreland. Professor Kane then told everyone about the problems they would face in the second round of the competition. In all the competitions just now, Professor Kane looked at most of the stronger opponents from other schools. He was currently holding a notebook and introducing to them which elites from Durmstrang and Boxburton schools needed extra attention. When Professor Kane was talking about this, Moreland didn't really listen. He continued to think about Lucas. For some reason, he suddenly saw someone who looked like Lucas, and he felt a little uneasy. Magatha, can you count a person based on the name? Moreland asked Magatha in a low voice. Calculate the name? I can only calculate who wrote the name, but not the owner of the name. Magatha shook her head, unless you give me some traces or something. Magatha's arithmetic divination can only perform arithmetic divination on visible people and traces. It is impossible for her to look at the name and calculate the owner of the name. Traces, yes. Traces. Maureen remembered the last time Magatha went to the men's bathroom with him. At that time, Magatha calculated that there was no one else in the bathroom based on the traces at the door of the bathroom, so she ran in blatantly. He immediately pulled Magatha and ran outside. Come with me. Where are you going? Professor Kane shouted from behind. The bathroom. Maureen replied without looking back. Toilet. Professor Kane looked at Maureen suspiciously, and then at Magatha, who was being dragged by Maureen, and muttered, "Didn't Maureen complain to us a while ago that Magatha followed him to the toilet? Why is he taking the initiative to drag Magatha to the toilet now? It is said that men are fickle, Professor, you know that, you say one thing and do another," Weber said with a smile. "Aren't you a man, Weber?" Professor Kane said unhappily. Maureen had already dragged Magatha to the entrance of the stadium just now. Magatha asked with a puzzled look on her face, "What are you doing? Help me count who was standing here just now." Maureen pointed to the place where the brown wizard stood. "You can count people by looking at the traces here, right?" He originally wanted to let Magatha count Raffle, but thinking that Raffle would cast a blocking magic, the calculation might not be effective, so he decided to let Magatha come here to count people. "Why do you want to count this?" Magatha asked curiously. When Maureen was about to explain, Magatha suddenly stopped Maureen and said, "Don't talk, let me calculate." "Wait, I'll record it first." Magatha took out the Maureen Walker Daily Behavior Records Mercury Retrograde Major Research Topic Handbook and wrote on the paper, at 11:35, Maureen was in the entrance passage to calculate the traces of people entering and leaving. The reason for his research is yet to be determined. Maybe he saw a woman who made his heart beat and was ready to calculate her name. "Hey. That's really not what I meant." Maureen touched his forehead. "Okay, let me help you calculate who your dream lover is." Agatha looked very excited. She rubbed her hands, then picked up her magic magnifying glass and began to observe the dirt traces on the ground, calculating quickly on the paper while observing. 2 Ministry of Magic staff walked by here 3 minutes ago, Tony and Danny, who came to the toilet. Are they the ones you were looking for? Go further, about 20 minutes ago. Maureen said. 20 minutes ago? Let me see. Magatha took out her wand and tapped the tiles on the ground, then calculated again, and said after a moment, a person with a blocking magic on him walked by here. That was Rafe. Who did Rafe talk to? You calculate this. Maureen said impatiently. I can't calculate who Rafe talked to. He has a blocking magic. I don't even know if this person is Rafe, but I did calculate that the other person who cast a blocking magic is a man. From the blurred back, he should be an uncle. Ah! Magatha suddenly exclaimed. What's wrong? Maureen was startled. Did Magatha make a major discovery? I thought you liked Hugo. Why do you like an uncle? Puff. Maureen almost spurted blood. It's not the person I like. Agatha, is this person called Lucas? Maureen was almost going crazy. He tried hard not to yell at Magatha, and then added, also, I don't like Hugo either. He is my roommate. I like girls. The latest novels are first released on the 69th book bar. Then which girl do you like? Magatha held up the Maureen Walker research manual with great anticipation, blinking her eyes, with a face full of thirst for knowledge. She couldn't wait to study what kind of girl Maureen liked, and maybe she could find out the reason why Maureen couldn't be fortune-told by arithmetic. This is not the point. You can break their blocking magic, and help me calculate it quickly. Maureen's face was dark. He definitely couldn't tell Magatha who the girl he liked was, otherwise Magatha would pester him next time. Okay, I'll help you break the barrier magic of these two people. Wait for me for 5 minutes. Magatha waved her wand and turned a flower pot next to her into a chair. She sat down and began to calculate quickly. Barrier magic is only temporary. It can block ordinary arithmetic fortune tellers, but it is basically impossible to stop a genius like Magatha. 5 minutes later, Magatha looked up with a puzzled look on her face. I only calculated Raffle, not the other person. The barrier magic on that person is too strong, like a bottomless pit. I can only see his back. I can't calculate anything else. I can't calculate it. Maureen was a little surprised. Can't you break his barrier magic? No, there's something very powerful on him that blocks my detection. Magatha said seriously, this thing is a very bloody and powerful black magic. My current magic level is too far behind his, and I can't break it yet. Black magic? Maureen was increasingly suspicious that the man was Lucas. Although he had only taken a quick look, he and Lucas had fought head-on, and the other party had a lot of powerful black magic to rely on. If there was some black magic that could block Magatha's detection, Maureen would not be surprised at all, because if not, then the staff of the Department of Mysteries of the Ministry of Magic would have caught him long ago. Then don't count that man, Just count Raffle first. Where did Raffle go later? Maureen asked. Since Raffle and Lucas left together, it would be fine to just count Raffle. Let me see. According to Gabriel's magic direction matrix, he should have gone this way. Magatha stood up, holding a magnifying glass, walked along the passage, and then stopped in front of a distribution room. Chapter 315, The Person Who Disappeared Out of Thin Air. Maureen didn't even want to ask what the switch room was. He took out his wand and knocked on the doorknob. The door of the switch room opened and heard the sound of many machines running. He walked in carefully and took a glance at the switch room. There were many messy electronic instruments in the switch room of the Muggle Stadium. These instruments dazzled Maureen. The colorful pointers on them made him confused, but he didn't have time to care about them. Instead, he waited for Magatha to calculate. Magatha continued to hold the magnifying glass and walked around a large white electrical box, then said in surprise, "Disappeared." "What disappeared?" Maureen asked. "It just disappeared out of thin air. Ralph and that powerful wizard disappeared here." Magatha pointed to the wall in front of her in confusion. "How can it disappear out of thin air? Did they apparate?" Maureen asked. He still remembered that the wizard's security guard said that you can't apparate in or out of this stadium, you can only apparate in the stadium. It's not apparition, it's not a magical trace of apparition, I can't tell. Anyway, the two of them just disappeared. Magatha looked around, and then said puzzledly, "But 10 minutes later, Raffle appeared here again, and then he walked out, but the mysterious man didn't appear. This is strange, why is it like this?" Maureen glanced at the wall, which was covered with various safety instructions, various circuit diagrams, and several Muggle safety posters, and nothing else. Who is that mysterious man? Magatha's expression suddenly became very solemn. He has very powerful black magic. We should tell Professor Kane and let the Ministry of Magic investigate this matter. Please, we are now tracking Raffle. Raffle is a professor at Durmstrang. We let Professor Kane find the Ministry of Magic to investigate Raffle, and then people will say that we're Hogwarts, framed Durmstrang School for the competition. Maureen shook his head. This matter could not be told to anyone. It was useless for the two students alone. They had no solid evidence at all. "Oh, by the way, I figured out one more thing," Magatha said, looking at her magic formula. "What else did you figure out?" "Lafleur went to a Muggle opera house, which is similar to what I calculated before the competition started." Magatha's eyes showed a puzzled look again. "But I don't understand, what is he doing at the opera house?" Maureen frowned, and then he remembered that Magatha mentioned this when they first met Lafleur. He asked, "Opera house? What opera house?" "It's hard to say. The result I calculated is rather vague. It seems to be an abandoned Muggle opera house, which is shabby inside. It is on a street with few people and is lined with trees. It should be not far from here," Magatha said, holding her chin. Maureen thought this place sounded familiar, and asked again, "Can you draw this Muggle opera house?" Magatha took out Maureen's research manual, hurriedly recorded Maureen's curiosity about a Muggle opera house, and then asked, "Why do you want to know about this?" Maureen automatically ignored Magatha's manual and said, "Just curious, don't you think Raffle is suspicious?" "Yes, a little bit. Okay, I'll draw it for you, I'm not very good at drawing." Magatha quickly drew some rough lines on the manual. She drew a row of streets, an iron gate with a big lock, and the general overall shape of the opera house. Magatha's drawing was very abstract, only a rough outline, but Maureen could still barely recognize that this Muggle opera house was actually the place where he went with his grandfather Alton during the summer vacation. And it was in that opera house that Maureen first saw those very strange people, with shining eyes and standing upside down on the ceiling. But what was Raffle doing there? At that time, Alton and his friends carefully examined the opera house and did not find anything unusual. Magatha kept observing Maureen's expression, even recording the unintentional sniffling of Maureen's nose while he was deep in thought. She did not interrupt Maureen, but stayed in silence with him. No one spoke. "Let's go, we should go back. I wonder if the competition has started." Maureen could not figure out what was going on, and then he remembered that there was a second round of competition. He hurriedly left here with Magatha and ran towards the rest area for the players. "Does it take you two so long to go to the bathroom?" Professor Kane was relieved when he saw Maureen coming back. "I was thinking of asking Webley to go to the bathroom to call you." "Yet, Professor Kane thought you two had fallen into the toilet." Webley snickered beside him. "Shut up, Weber. Professor Kane ignored the nervous Weber and said, "The second round draw has been announced. Is the first round over?" Maureen looked up at the number 3 stage involuntarily. The 240-meter machetes on the number 3 stage were gone. This stage was the most tenacious contest. Other stages only took an average of 10 minutes to finish, but the 2 machetes on the number 3 stage chopped from beginning to end, with sharp blades, for almost 2 hours. It was not clear which machete won in the end. Professor Kane continued, "In the second round of the draw, 15 people randomly drew their opponents, which means that one person is lucky and got a buy. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar." Maureen still doesn't know the rules of the second round. To be honest, he didn't pay much attention to this competition. A buy means you can go directly to the third round. Professor Kane said happily, "Guess who the lucky contestant in the second round is?" "Professor, let me calculate." Magatha was very active in calculating on the draft paper, making a mess of it, and then her face became depressed. "It's over, Professor. I can't figure out that person based on your expression now." But then Magatha remembered something and said in surprise, "Oh, this person is Maureen, right?" "Yes, the lucky contestant in the second round is Maureen." "Magatha, have you studied Maureen thoroughly?" Professor Kane asked with a smile. "No." Magatha said reluctantly, "Because I didn't calculate who the person you said was, which means that the person must be him." Magatha glared at Maureen fiercely again. Maureen shrugged his shoulders, ignoring Magatha's complaints, and asked in surprise, "Don't I have to participate in the second round?" "Yes, you don't have to participate, you can go directly to the third round." Professor Kane was very satisfied with this result. Although he knew that Maureen's transfiguration was very powerful, because Maureen only demonstrated a second-grade transfiguration in class, even Professor Kane didn't know what level Maureen's transfiguration was. But in any case, one less round of competition means infinite possibilities. It's a good opportunity. Maureen didn't even think about the benefits of a buy. The only thing in his mind was the person that Magatha couldn't figure out. Since he didn't have to participate in the second round, he could take this opportunity to find a way to investigate. Chapter 316, Greedy Witch. But don't be too happy too soon, because only the top 3 in this year's Dumbledore Cup competition will get a certificate, so even if you make it to the quarterfinals, it doesn't mean anything. After all, according to this elimination method, the later you go, the stronger the opponents you will encounter. Professor Kane reminded again. People with high magic skills can easily defeat others to advance, so the players who stay behind are all extraordinary. Although the lucky ones who have a bye have played one less round, if their magic skills are not good enough and they encounter powerful wizards, they will still be eliminated in the third round. But except for your good luck, Rose and Erdo are not lucky. Webbery seemed to be gloating next to him. Professor Kane tapped Webbery's head with his wand in dissatisfaction. "Why are you so happy? What's wrong with them, Professor?" Maureen looked at Rose and Erdo, who were sitting on the chair nervously. He was very familiar with Rose, but he didn't know Erdo very well. He only knew that Erdo was a 6th-year student in Hufflepuff, 2 years older than Rose. "I know." Magatha observed the expressions of Rose and Erdo, and couldn't wait to say, "They too are the opponents in the next round." "Yes, sometimes it is so cruel." Professor Kane looked at Rose and Erdo with regret, shook his head and said, "In the Dumbledore Cup, in addition to not meeting people from your own school in the first round, when you draw lots for the second round, there is a high probability that several people's opponents will be from their own school. But this is a stage to showcase one's personal magical level after all, and they will eventually meet each other. 5 people from Hogwarts advance to the second round. When drawing opponents from 15 people, it is easy for these 5 people to meet people from their own school. It's normal that Durmstrang and Boxburtons have also drawn their own people. In fact, from another perspective, meeting our own people means that someone from our school will definitely enter the third round, which is another benefit. Professor Kane looked at Erdo and Rose encouragingly. He felt helpless. Luck favored Maureen, but not Rose and Erdo. These 2 people will compete in the next round, and one of them is destined to be eliminated. It's painful to watch. Rose looked more nervous. Although she was a 4th-grade student, Erdo was not much behind, not to mention that Erdo was a 6th-grade student, so Erdo's chances of winning were still greater. Okay, the second round of competition will not start until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's go have lunch first. Everyone should work hard. Professor Kane said. It was already 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and there were still games in the afternoon, so many wizards would not leave the stadium. Many magic restaurants paid sponsorship fees and moved their restaurants to the stadium. The entire track was already crowded with people. More than a dozen wizard restaurants were shouting to attract customers and distributing flyers on the red track. These restaurants look very simple on the outside, just a simple tent, no more than 5 or 6 square meters, but it was a different story inside the tent. For this event, it was not a big problem for some tents to accommodate 100 or 200 people. All restaurants had prepared this kind of mobile magic portable tent with a traceless extension spell, which was specially created for such large-scale wizard activities. Like Quidditch games, magic singers concerts, and the current competitions held between schools, as long as there were activities where a large number of wizards gathered, these restaurants would bring this kind of portable tent to do business. Of course, the restaurant site fee still had to be paid, and it was not cheap. Professor Kane led Maureen and others to the Greedy Witch restaurant. This restaurant was a dining place specially designated by the Ministry of Magic for professors and students of 3 schools. The lunch fee was reimbursed by the Ministry of Magic Academic Research Association. The Ministry of Magic Academic Research Association is really generous. They actually reimbursed us for lunch. I've always wanted to eat at the Greedy Witch restaurant, but the one in Diagon Alley is so popular that it's always full. Webbery said happily. What's so generous about this? Magatha said disdainfully. After all, the Ministry of Magic invited the elites of 3 schools to participate in this academic competition, attracting so many wizard audiences, and collecting a lot of ticket fees, advertising fees and venue fees. Reimbursing a meal is just a drop in the bucket, okay? Magatha saw this kind of thing more clearly than anyone else. She could basically calculate anything as soon as she put pen to paper. Magatha is right. Professor K nodded and said, don't underestimate this kind of activity. These activities can greatly boost the domestic demand of the wizard economy and stimulate the growth of wizard consumption, which is very helpful for the development of wizard society. Now is not a monotonous wizard model of the 1980s and 1990s. The times are changing, and everything must keep pace with the times. If you can also choose wizard economics like Magatha. It is a very interesting subject. In the 21st century, Hogwarts School has opened many elective courses similar to those of Muggle universities. Although wizards are more powerful than Muggles, they are behind in many aspects. Therefore, the school has already opened many courses. Last year, Muggle studies were made a compulsory course, which is enough to show the importance of wizards to Muggles. Led by a wizard waiter, they walked into the tent of the Greedy Witch restaurant. The decoration style of this tent is extremely elegant, with a strong wizard town style, not much different from a real restaurant. The waiter took them into a private room and gave them several menus. Everything was free. Webbery listened to Magatha's words and felt that it was really stingy to only reimburse 1 meal for such a big event, so he ordered 2 servings of all the dishes and drinks on the entire menu. Can you finish it, Webbery? Magatha said unhappily. There are 12 of us here. Didn't you say it was a drop in the bucket? Webbery said with a smile. Just order 1 serving of everything first, try not to waste, saving is a virtue. Professor Kane said. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. If we can't finish it, we'll pack it up. Webbery took out his wand and conjured up several magic paper boxes for packing. If possible, I can pack up all the dishes of the Greedy Witch. Professor Kane shook his head helplessly. Maureen sat in the corner, still thinking about a Muggle opera house. What's wrong? You don't even have to participate in the next round. Why are you still so depressed? Magatha held her chin with one hand and used the other hand to look around with a magnifying glass. No, I'm just thinking about something. Maureen said. Thinking about whether you can beat your opponent in Transfiguration? Magatha asked. Maureen shrugged his shoulders and didn't comment. Chapter 317 Lunch. Several house elves wearing white hats, red tea towels, and with a Greedy Witch mark on their chests came in with rows of dining carts taller than them, and brought plates of tempting dishes to the table. Please enjoy, distinguished guest. The house elves bowed and retreated. Soon, another house elf came in with a dining cart. Webbery ordered too many dishes, and the table couldn't hold them. The house elves performed a clever magic and suspended all the plates above the table. The plates were also cast with an invisibility spell, so you can see the dishes inside directly. If you want, you just need to use a magic wand to beckon them and they will float over. But because there are many varieties of dishes, in addition to some normal dishes, Webbery also ordered many rare and fresh special dishes. Some of the special dishes require great courage to eat. Webbery, why did you order live caterpillars? Magatha looked at the moving insects with disgust. This dish was really fresh and didn't even need to be cooked. This is the famous purple-haired stick insect of the greedy witch. It is naturally cultivated and crunchy when eaten raw. It is rich in protein, can detoxify and nourish the skin, reduce eye bags, and reduce crow's feet. Webbery was very happy. He wanted to sell this plate of insects to everyone, but everyone refused to eat live insects. You don't know how to appreciate delicious food, I'll taste it for you. Webbery stuffed the wriggling purple-haired stick insect into his mouth with a knife and fork, closed his eyes and chewed it, looking very enjoyable. This taste is fragrant, smooth, tender, and melts in the mouth. The warmth moisturizes the whole body. Chewing it, my whole soul is instantly sublimated, and I can even clearly feel that every pore on my body exudes the warmth of a unicorn, and the taste buds on my tongue are like flowers in the wind blooming in the morning sun. It's just a meal, why do you have to be so disgusting? Magatha glared at Webbery, wishing to put this plate of insects on Webbery's face. Everyone also looked at Webbery with disgust. Eating with this guy simply affects their appetite. Magatha, you have to have some. Webbery didn't shy away from it at all. He picked up a stick insect that was still wriggling with a knife and fork, held it in front of Magatha, and said happily, I see you have stretch marks on your face. Pa. Before Webbery finished speaking, Magatha waved her wand and really slammed the stick insect dish on Webbery's face. Pregnancy, you bastard. Do you know what pregnancy is? Magatha cursed angrily. Professor Kane quickly asked him to take away the plate of weird dishes, and pulled a house elf to ask him not to send those courage-challenging dishes to affect everyone's appetite. Professor, you have to cherish this rare free opportunity. If you miss this time, you have to wait another year. Webbery used his wand to pick the insect off his face. This idiot has always been outspoken, saying whatever he wants, and not giving face at all. His brain is even more abnormal than Magatha. If it weren't for his high level of magic, ordinary students in school couldn't beat him, and he would probably be surrounded and beaten from time to time. Except for a few dishes that required courage to swallow, the other dishes were very rich, and they were more advanced and exquisite than the food at Hogwarts school. Many dishes were not available at school. After all, it was a restaurant dedicated to wizards, and the dishes were all first class. In fact, Maureen was also very interested in the dishes of the greedy witch. Under normal circumstances, he might try every one of them. After all, it was free, so it would be a waste not to eat. But today he was in no mood to eat, and put down his knife and fork after eating a little. Magatha, come with me after you finish eating. Maureen whispered to Magatha. What's wrong? Are you full so soon? Magatha asked while cutting a piece of steak. I need your help. Maureen whispered. Magatha immediately put down her knife and fork, and said without hesitation, what help, just ask. She couldn't wait to take out a Magatha research manual. She was very active in everything related to Mora. For her, doing anything with Moratha was studying magic. Come with me. Maureen stood up and said to Professor Kane, Professor, let's go out for a while. Where are you two going? Professor Kane asked. Do you need to ask? Professor, it must be the toilet. Webley said beside him, and then picked up a piece of black, burnt thing and asked, Professor, would you like some? This fire-simmered black oil tastes good. I heard it is precious ambergris. Shut up. Eat your oil and don't talk. Professor Kane glared at Webley, then shouted to Maureen and Magatha, you two should come back quickly and take a rest. There's a game in the afternoon. Got it, Professor. Maureen had left the tent and ran along the red track towards the exit of the stadium. Where are we going? Magatha asked. Muggle Opera House. Maureen had already walked to the door of the gymnasium. The security guard was eating. He ran over to pick up the competition sign and asked, Hello, sir. We are students of Hogwarts. We have something to do and want to leave temporarily. We will come back later. Is that okay? Students of Hogwarts. The security guard was sitting on a chair at the door eating wide noodles. There was black oil on the corners of his mouth. He took the competition sign suspiciously, looked at Maureen and Magatha again, and handed them a piece of parchment. Register your wands. Maureen and Magatha tapped the parchment with their wands, and the information of their wands appeared on the parchment. The wand is equivalent to the identity certificate of the wizard. What are we going to do there? Magatha asked after walking out of the gate of the stadium. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. Go and investigate what Raffle is going to do. Maureen looked around. The stadium was surrounded by a Muggle repelling spell. There were no Muggles within a 2-mile radius. He was about to operate. Are you sure? Magatha frowned and asked, although the two of us can temporarily use magic outside the school because of the competition, it's not a good idea to go there now, right? This matter is very important. Maureen said simply. Magatha immediately did not object. The word very important alone made her take it seriously. She was even more curious about things that were very important to Maureen. She immediately took out a manual and began to record Maureen's words. Maureen was helpless for a while, and he grabbed Magatha and Aprit and disappeared from the spot. He had been to the Muggle Opera House during the summer vacation, so he knew where the Opera House was exactly. According to Magatha, the Opera House was not far from the Muggle Stadium, just a few streets away. When Maureen appeared next to the familiar row of streets, Magatha was shocked. You didn't tell me you learned to operate. Magatha said loudly. Hush. Keep your voice down. Maureen motioned Magatha not to get startled. He looked around and saw a white-haired old woman in the distance, hunched over and hobbling with a cane, walking down the street in front. There are Muggles here. They hid behind a tree and waited for the Muggle old woman to walk out of the street. This process took a while. The old woman walked too slowly, so slowly that Maureen wanted to go over and wave his wand to help her. At the age of 12, he has learned to operate and likes to hang out in Muggle opera houses. His hobbies are most likely related to listening to Muggle operas. Could it be that listening to Muggle operas can prevent him from being divined by arithmetic? Magatha leaned against a tree and took notes in the Maureen research manual. Then she bit the tip of the pen and muttered to herself, I need to highlight the key points here. I'm going to go back and study all the Muggle operas. Maureen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This girl was so persistent. She would not let go of any secret she caught on to. She would pay attention to every little thing and study him from all aspects. She was really a good student who was serious about studying. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318, The Man Magatha Cannot See. After waiting for about 10 minutes, the old woman finally disappeared at the end of the street. She walked so slowly that even a turtle could be faster than her. Maureen called Magatha to follow him, and then walked quickly on the old brick road towards the entrance of the Muggle Opera House. He was not unfamiliar with this place. He had been here twice with Grandpa Alton during the summer vacation, and he didn't notice anything wrong. But Magatha actually said that Raffle had been here, which made him feel that something was wrong. Just as they were about to get close to the entrance of the Opera House, Maureen felt something and grabbed Magatha. Wait, something is wrong. Maureen pulled Magatha back behind a tree, and then quickly stuck his head out to look around. What's wrong? Magatha asked. Maureen shook his head. He couldn't explain it. Since he had just apparated here, he had a very strange feeling, and every time he had this feeling, he would inexplicably run to another place. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. His intuition told him that this was definitely not a good thing. Last time in the Forbidden Forest, he was attacked by an inexplicable monster, but he couldn't help but want to figure this out. Doy had already jumped onto Maureen's shoulder, squeaking and looking around. If I have any abnormality, remember to pull me in time. Maureen turned his head and said to Magatha seriously. Okay. Magatha looked at Maureen in confusion, and then looked around. The pen in her hand never stopped, and she carefully recorded every word Maureen said. Maureen had been staring at the gate of the Muggle Opera House. The old and dilapidated place was no different from the last time he came, but he felt that there was something different about the gate. Count the traces of the big iron gate of the Opera House and see if anyone has entered. Maureen whispered. Magatha didn't ask any more questions, and directly picked up the pen to start calculating, and took out a magnifying glass from her pocket. Her magic magnifying glass was very special, more useful than a telescope, and it could magnify the distant scene with a slight shake. No one has walked on this street in the past hour. Magatha crossed out 2 lines of formulas and said, No one. Maureen thought for a moment. But he suddenly felt something was wrong. Wait, You just said that no one has walked on this street in the past hour. Yes. Raffle came here 2 or 3 hours ago. There is a leaf here that he stepped on, but how should I put it? I didn't calculate much, and I don't know if he went in. Magatha checked the magic formula again and said, but no one came here after he left. But that's not right. Just now, a white-haired old woman walked by with a cane. Doesn't your arithmetic work? Maureen was still thinking that the old Muggle woman walked slower than a turtle, and he was thinking about using magic to help her. White-haired old woman? What white-haired old woman? Magatha looked around and asked in confusion, I didn't see her. You didn't see her? Just when we apparated, that person came towards us, so I pulled you behind a tree and she walked along this street. Maureen pointed to the street covered with fallen leaves. The wind blew through the street, and many leaves swirled and fluttered. The Muggle old woman just walked through the street. The target was so obvious that Magatha couldn't have missed it. Really? Did you pull me behind the tree to hide? I was wondering why you pulled me behind the tree, but I didn't figure out what old woman was. Magatha bit the tip of the pen, becoming more and more confused by Maureen's words. She began to record Maureen's research manual again. Maureen was no longer in the mood to care about this manual. At this time, he suddenly felt a strong sense of vigilance in his heart and immediately looked behind him. What's wrong? Magatha asked. Pull out your wand. Maureen disappeared on the spot after saying that. Maureen just felt that someone was watching him at the end of the street behind him. The feeling of being watched was very strong, and that was exactly where the white-haired old woman disappeared. He apparated to the end of the street and looked to the left. He remembered that the old woman walked to the left. On the left was a long asphalt road with a variety of Muggle shops on both sides of the street. There were not many Muggle pedestrians on the road, but the old woman disappeared. The old woman just walked out of the street. With her turtle-like speed, it is estimated that she has not walked 50 meters now, but now there is no trace of her. This is really weird. What's going on? Magatha apparated from there to Maureen and asked. Someone was spying on us just now. Maureen said in a deep voice. When he came here, the feeling of being watched had disappeared. Spying on us? Magatha said in surprise. Is it Raffle? The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. I don't know, the old woman I saw just now has also disappeared. Maureen thought for a while and asked again, are you sure you didn't calculate that an old woman walked here? Magatha picked up the brush and recalculated, shaking her head. No, I didn't calculate it. That's strange. Maureen pondered. He turned and walked towards the Muggle Opera House, and decided to go in to see what was going on. A lattice hole opened. Maureen knocked on the iron door of the Opera House, and the rusty iron door made a dull sound, and then the door slowly moved to both sides. He saw the shabby hall in front of him again, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of dust, and no other footprints were seen. Maureen took 2 steps, and he left his own footprints. There are traces of magic covering footprints here. Magatha pointed to Maureen's footprints on the ground and said, this kind of trace is easy to calculate. Anyway, something is wrong here. Hold your wand and follow me closely. Maureen walked in carefully. This time, in order to prevent any abnormal situation, he had to ensure that he could always see Magatha's figure and be careful not to run to that place accidentally. What Maureen and Magatha didn't realize was that after they entered the gloomy Muggle Opera House, behind the poplar trees beside the depressed street, an old woman who had already lost all her teeth was staring at the door of the opera house with turbid eyes. The wrinkles on the old woman's face were piled together, like a puddle of mud randomly smeared on her face, and her eyes were covered with a layer of white shadows. At this time, she was looking at the door of the opera house miserably and laughing. When she laughed, her toothless mouth was like a shriveled hole, dark and weird. The old woman's laughter was like nails scratching on glass, dry and unbearable. It echoed in the street and seemed to bring up a gust of cold air. Chapter 319 Return to the Muggle Opera House. Maureen and Magatha searched the entire gloomy Muggle Opera House. It was no different from when Maureen came here during the summer vacation. There were broken glass doors, empty and worn-out chairs, and some spider webs hanging on them. When she walked over, she could smell a rotten and stale smell. Although Magatha was a girl, she was born with a novel way of thinking. She could run into the men's restroom without blushing or beating her heart. How could a mere Muggle opera house scare her? She followed Maureen around and kept poking her head out, and from time to time she had to record Maureen's research manual. Maureen was investigating this gloomy and lonely Muggle opera house, and Magatha was studying Maureen. The division of labor was clear. Maureen felt very strange, because after entering this opera house, the familiar feeling just now disappeared, as if nothing had happened. He carefully checked the performance hall on the first floor and used various revealing spells, but did not see any figures. Not to mention human figures, it seemed that even mice and insects were not seen. "Have you been here before?" Magatha followed Maureen to check around the auditorium on the first floor. "You look familiar with this place. I came here with my grandfather during the summer vacation. There was something wrong with the magic here." Maureen paid attention to the movements around him, kicked a can away, and looked under the seat. Although he didn't know what he was looking for, he always felt that there must be something hidden somewhere here. They checked all the auditoriums on the first floor of the opera house. With Magatha here, Maureen didn't need to use the magic detector made of feathered dusters by the fire squirrel that Alton gave him last time. As long as he pointed to a place, Magatha could calculate whether anyone had stepped on this place. Although it was convenient to detect people with Magatha's natural magic traces, it was a pity that Magatha didn't see any traces of people coming here. Some were just footprints left by Alton and others who came in to explore a few months ago. These were not what Maureen wanted. "Is it covered by something?" Maureen walked to the back of the stage. Behind the stage is a dressing room. There is a large wardrobe made of abandoned white pine wood in the dressing room. A lot of the paint on it has peeled off, and the edge of the wardrobe has been scratched by something. The last time he came, Maureen had seen this wardrobe. The wood of the wardrobe is very thick. If someone sneezes in it, no sound will be heard. He habitually reached out and opened the wardrobe. There was nothing in the wardrobe, only some tape and dust, and 2 crooked hangers. It was more than enough to hide 2 people. Maureen closed the wardrobe again and walked back to the performance hall. "Magatha, you really didn't calculate anything." Maureen turned to the stairs on the second floor. He was going to take a look at the auditorium on the second floor. Magatha calculated on paper while walking, and suddenly said, "This Muggle opera house is very strange. Is it really a Muggle place?" "It is a Muggle place. What's wrong? What's strange about it?" Maureen asked. Magatha stood at the stairs, looking at the crooked ceiling, and glanced at the broken window, and said, "I calculated a lot of messy magic, very powerful, and it seems a bit dangerous." "Magic? You calculated that there's magic here?" Maureen was surprised, "But that's not right. When I came here with my grandfather last summer vacation, no magic was detected here. I can't explain it clearly. The magic here seems to be there and not there. I can calculate it sometimes, and I can't calculate it sometimes, and I can't calculate the source of these magics." Magatha's magic formula was divided into 2 parts. She outlined the magic formula on the left, crossed out the magic formula on the right, and restored the formula again after a while. "Why is this happening?" Maureen asked in confusion. Magatha bit the tip of the pen, frowned and thought for a long time, shook her head and said, "I don't know. It may be a very powerful blocking magic, just like the blocking magic that Professor Kane cast on us, but this magic is more advanced. I have never seen it before. This Muggle opera house is really wrong." Maureen was getting more and more confused. He had felt that this Muggle opera house was not simple since the summer vacation. He had seen people on the ceiling for no reason. Now during the Dumbledore Cup Transfiguration competition, Magatha actually calculated this opera house when calculating Raffle of Durmstrang. What was the connection between them? "Has Raffle come in?" Maureen asked. "Traces. My algorithm needs traces. I can only calculate the places where he has walked. If he has not walked, I can't calculate. He is very likely to have apparated directly to a certain place here. I must go to the place where he apparated to continue calculating." Magatha explained. Magatha did not ask Maureen if he wanted to go back, nor did she tell Maureen that he should not go around without telling Professor Kane. She just followed Maureen honestly, being a down-to-earth bystander and recorder, and did not interfere with Maureen's behavior. They had already reached the stairs to the second floor. The floor of the second floor was paved with red tiles. Some of the tiles had cracked, as if something heavy had fallen on them. Walking along the corridor through a tilted door, it was the auditorium on the second floor. From the second floor terraced auditorium, you can clearly see the dilapidated stage on the first floor. The opera house has a strong sense of hierarchy, and the lights on the ceiling are arranged in a staggered manner. You can imagine the magnificent appearance of the entire opera house when the spotlight was turned on. It's a pity that it is now abandoned. Magatha followed Maureen down the aisle with a magnifying glass in her hand, and suddenly she said, "Hey. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. What's wrong?" "Magatha, what did you see?" Maureen stopped and asked. Magatha walked quickly to a chair in front, from which she could clearly see the auditorium and stage of the performance hall on the first floor. Magatha said puzzledly, "Someone just sat on this chair." "Just now? When was it?" Maureen asked quickly. Magatha quickly calculated with a pen, and suddenly exclaimed, "Just 3 minutes and 27 seconds ago." 3 minutes and 27 seconds ago? Doesn't that mean? Maureen took a breath of cold air. 3 minutes ago, he and Magatha were looking for unusual places in the audience seats on the first floor, but they didn't look up at the audience seats on the second floor. That is to say, when they were searching the first floor, someone was sitting here watching them. Maureen clenched his wand and said in a deep voice, "There are traces left on this chair, so can you calculate who it is?" Before Magatha could answer, there was a slight sound from the corridor they had just entered, as if something squeezed the air. Not good. Maureen hurried to the corridor. Chapter 320 The Mysterious Old Witch. The corridor was empty. Maureen was a step too late. Someone had parried it away. Damn it. Maureen was a little annoyed. When he was checking on the first floor just now, he didn't even think of looking up at the audience seats on the second floor. So who was the person sitting on the second floor spying on him? Why did he appear in this place? What was his purpose? Magatha tried to calculate from the traces left by the other party when he parried it away, but after calculating for a long time, she crumpled the paper into a ball and shook her head. "I can't figure it out. This person's magic is too powerful." "Is it the person who left with Loeffler at the stadium?" Maureen asked. "I don't know. If it is deliberately covered up with black magic, I can't compare it with these clues alone. I have to see it with my own eyes." Magatha put the calculated paper into her pocket and said, "What secrets are hidden in this place?" Maureen walked to the window on one side of the corridor. Through the dusty glass window, he could see the street outside the opera house, but the street was lined with green trees on both sides, and the leaves covered it, so he couldn't see the scene on the road. He reached out and touched his pocket, frowned and was silent for a moment, then said, "Let's go, Magatha, let's go back. Professor K may be looking for us." "Okay." Although Magatha didn't know what Maureen was thinking, she nodded. Maureen held her and the two of them paraded away. 5 minutes after Maureen and Magatha left, the rusty iron door on the first floor of the opera house suddenly closed automatically with a clatter, and the big padlock also made a boring click and locked itself. In the empty auditorium on the second floor of the opera house, a man wearing a brown wizard robe and a cowboy hat had been sitting there. A moment later, a white-haired old witch with a cane slowly walked from the entrance. She walked very slowly, walking down the stepped auditorium aisle, and it seemed that she had to breathe for half a day after each step. When she walked to the man's side, it seemed like a century had passed. "Is that the boy? Lucas?" The old witch's muddy face showed a strange smile at this time, looking at the man in brown wizard robes, who was sitting on the chair that Magatha had just found, as if he had been sitting there for a long time and had never moved. Lucas raised his head slightly, lazily, and the eyes under the brim of his hat flashed a hint of playful gloom. "Have you been discovered?" Lucas asked. "This boy is very vigilant." The old witch bent down and sat down on the seat next to Lucas. Her movements were very slow, and her bones creaked when she bent down, as if her bones were rusted. "I'm really surprised that you would find this place." Lucas stretched out his feet and put his feet on the back of the chair in front of him. "Because he has the help of that girl, who is a very outstanding arithmetic divination genius." The old witch finally sat down, and the screws of the chair made a creaking sound, and it was shaky, but she reached out and knocked on the armrest, and the creaking sound stopped immediately. The old witch breathed a sigh of relief, as if such a simple action as sitting down almost cost her life. "She's just a silly girl who can only hold a pen." Lucas looked very disdainful. "Do you look down on arithmetic fortune tellers?" The old witch asked sinisterly. "Are you sure?" Lucas' nose twitched, as if he wanted to sneer, but he remembered something and took it back abruptly, as if he didn't want to refute the old witch's words. After a while, Lucas sneered, "Your divination skills are so powerful, but you were almost discovered." The old witch's wrinkled face suddenly sank, She snapped her fingers, and then the chair under Lucas' body suddenly shattered. Lucas jumped up suddenly, almost falling down. He turned around and glared at the old witch, shouting, "What are you doing? It's arithmetic divination." "Lucas, if you dare to call it divination again, I promise," the old witch showed a miserable smile, "next time it won't be the chair that breaks." Lucas narrowed his eyes, as if he wanted to get angry, but suppressed his anger, snorted coldly, and walked to another chair and sat down. The old witch put the crutches aside, carefully leaned against the back of the chair, adjusted the back of the chair, and changed to a comfortable sitting position. "It wasn't her who found me, it was the boy. I was just curious and wanted to give it a try." The old witch's tone seemed to become excited, and her breathing became a little rapid. "It's so unexpected. I used arithmetic divination magic to deceive the girl, but I couldn't deceive the boy." When the old witch spoke excitedly, the mud-like wrinkles on her face were stretched out. "It turns out that invisible people really exist. Humph, you'd better take it easy. If something unexpected happens and ruins the master's plan, I'm not afraid of your master, Lucas. You don't have to scare me with a living paper man," the old witch said dryly. "The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. How dare you say that about him?" Lucas' face twisted, his voice a little shrill. "Do you think you have lived too long?" The old witch glanced at Lucas with contempt. "PNG can't protect himself, and he still comes to trouble me? You'd better figure it out. If it weren't for me, he would have been finished long ago. He was too stupid, thinking that his plan was foolproof, but he exposed his whereabouts. You should understand that Agliba and his wife are still looking for him, right?" Lucas' eyelids twitched, and he said viciously, "Those two old guys. If I were you, I wouldn't say that to them." The old witch looked at Lucas with contempt. "The couple are people you can't afford to offend. If I hadn't intervened, they would have found PNG with the help of the crystal ball. Do you think your master who is hiding in the painting can survive with a broken time converter after exposing his ambitions?" Lucas stared at the old witch angrily, his right hand always holding the wand in his pocket. "Tell me, what exactly is PNG going to do?" the old witch asked impatiently, not caring about the little movements in Lucas's hands. The air was silent for a few seconds, and after suppressing his anger, Lucas slowly said, "For the boy." "Then why didn't you just catch him just now?" The old witch looked at Lucas coldly. "Can't you deal with two children?" "Because the time has not come yet." Lucas sneered. "The master needs to confirm one thing first." "Confirm what?" "He doesn't plan to catch the boy to resurrect himself. He has a better plan." Lucas seemed unwilling to explain too much. "There is an answer that only the boy can give. You will understand in the future." "Let me understand now." The old witch's voice was very dry and sounded weak, but when she spoke, there was a strange and oppressive breath that seemed to make people breathless. Lucas's face changed slightly, and he was a little uncertain. He obviously didn't want to let the old witch know so soon, but he was quite afraid of this old witch who had half a foot in the coffin. He pondered for a long time and made a decision. "I can tell you what the next plan is." Chapter 321, A Surprise Attack. Lucas was about to speak, but a strange gleam appeared in the old witch's white eyes. "Wait a minute." The old witch seemed to have heard something and slowly turned her head. When she turned her head, the joints of her neck creaked like a clockwork, which was very irritating in the silent audience. Her eyes fell on the ceiling, and her eyes flashed with surprise. "What's wrong?" Lucas asked. "It turns out that the guests haven't left yet." The old witch laughed dryly again, and she suddenly raised her hand. A magic wand appeared in her hand. The speed was extremely fast. No one would have thought that the old witch who had just sat down and had to take a long breath would actually use such a quick method to pull out the magic wand. A green light suddenly spurted out from the tip of her bone-white wand, and the green light spell hit the ground in front of her. Then the entire opera house seemed to be torn apart by an invisible big hand. All the tables and chairs flew to both sides. The cracks spread rapidly, tearing the shabby stage in half, revealing the dressing room behind the stage, and went straight to the big wardrobe in the dressing room. Bang! The big wardrobe also shattered, with fragments flying and smoke filling the air. Puff! When the wardrobe shattered, two figures just disappeared in the fragments. "Who is it?" Lucas had already jumped out, apparated to the side of the wardrobe, flicked his wand to wave away the smoke, looked at the pile of messy debris with cold eyes, and his face was extremely livid. "Someone is hiding in the closet." Lucas glared at the old witch. "You didn't calculate this." I can't calculate the invisible man. The old witch also walked over slowly, laughing miserably. She seemed to have returned to her fragile appearance just now, as if she was about to take her last breath. I just accidentally calculated that girl. She raised her hand and threw a retractable ear to the ground. There was a small eye on the earlobe of the retractable ear. At this time, it was already emitting a scorched smoke, and it was obviously unusable. Maureen pulled Magatha out of the air and landed at the door of the Muggle gymnasium, panting and still a little scared. Fortunately, we ran fast. Maureen sat on the flower bed and spread his palm. In his palm was a retractable ear and a broken mirror, which was emitting a puff of black smoke. He quickly threw these two things away. What are those two wizards going to do? Magatha was also shocked. Just now, when Maureen was at the Muggle Opera House, he and Magatha said they were going to Apprit back, but in fact, Maureen pulled Magatha to Apprit to the big closet in the dressing room behind the stage of the Opera House. The wood of the closet was very thick, and it was a relatively closed space. The sound of Apprit inside would not be heard. The two squeezed into the closet and waited. Also, how did you know they would go back? Magatha asked. I guessed. Maureen looked at the mirror on the ground that had been gradually corroded and melted by the black smoke and the collapsed telescopic ear, and couldn't help muttering in his heart that the old witch's black magic was really powerful. After they hid in the closet just now, Maureen took out the Weasley improved telescopic ear that Hugo gave him a few days ago, and let the telescopic ear quietly climb up to the ceiling to eavesdrop. He held the mirror in the closet and used the faint light of the wand to peek at the conversation between the two people. If the old witch hadn't suddenly discovered the telescopic ear, they might have known Lucas' plan now. You guessed? How could you guess such a thing? Magatha was very averse to the word guessing, and there was no such word in her life motto. To be honest, sometimes you don't need to calculate everything, just guess and you will know roughly. Maureen looked at the mirror, and the mirror and the retractable ear had completely turned into a pool of black water. Maureen was not surprised that he could guess this. Lucas sat in the audience seats on the second floor so arrogantly and spied on them. He left after being calculated by Magatha. But he was a fugitive after all. Maureen's grandfather was from the Ministry of Magic. If the Ministry of Magic came here to investigate again, Lucas would definitely be in danger. Maureen felt that Lucas would definitely go back and eliminate all traces after they left to prevent his whereabouts from being calculated by the Ministry of Magic. So when Maureen pulled Magatha to Apprit, he did not Apprit back to the gymnasium, but Apprit to the big closet. Originally, it was just a try, to kill a sneak attack and see if he could seize the opportunity, and he really waited for it. Unfortunately, Maureen managed to hide it from Lucas, but he couldn't hide it from the old witch who had half a foot in the coffin. Maureen's retractable ear was discovered by the old witch, and the magic she cast could actually affect the other retractable ear and the monitoring mirror. The two of them were almost caught. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. That old witch seems to be a very powerful arithmetic fortune teller. Have you heard of such a person? Maureen asked in a deep voice. Just now, when Lucas said arithmetic fortune telling is divination, the old witch gave Lucas a warning without hesitation. This attitude towards arithmetic fortune telling is a bit similar to Magatha, who usually hates other people saying arithmetic fortune telling is divination. I don't know, I haven't heard of this person at all. Magatha looked a little frustrated. What's wrong with you? Maureen asked. That old witch's arithmetic and divination completely crushed me. She is the white-haired old woman you just mentioned, walking on the street, right? Magatha said unwillingly. When they apparated to that street, Magatha calculated the traces of the street and calculated that no one had walked on it for an hour. However, the old woman walked past them in a swagger. Maureen saw it, but she didn't. Her arithmetic and divination magic was fooled by others. Don't think too much. That weird old witch is obviously not simple. Maureen comforted. After a moment, he asked again, you really don't know who she is? Didn't Professor Kane say that he knows no more than 5 outstanding arithmetic fortune tellers like you? If this old witch's arithmetic fortune telling is better than yours, she must be famous. Magatha shook her head. In addition to Professor Victor, there are several other very powerful arithmetic fortune tellers. Professor Victor has told me before, and I have met several of his predecessors. Professor Victor is also a very powerful arithmetic fortune teller, but I never knew there was such an unfathomable old witch. Magatha buried her head and calculated quickly, filling the entire calculation paper with various complex formulas. She wanted to calculate the identity of the old witch, but the more she calculated, the worse it got. No, her arithmetic magic is so powerful, it's completely beyond my ability to figure out, damn it. Magatha felt as if she had another opponent to study, which aroused her fighting spirit. She was always passionate about unknown magic knowledge and would not give up easily. I will definitely calculate it. Magatha snorted. Although Maureen usually doesn't like Magatha's persistence in pestering him, he needs Magatha's fighting spirit now. If the other party is an arithmetic fortune teller, then he needs Magatha's help. Chapter 322 Timing. Maureen stared at the telescopic ears and mirror on the ground, which had turned into black ash. He broke off a branch from the flower bed next to him, turned the branch into a glass bottle, and then carefully collected the black ash into the glass bottle with his magic wand. The black ash was corroded by very powerful black magic. Maureen planned to go back and ask Professor Francis what kind of black magic it was to see if he could find some clues. Magatha calculated for another full page, but she still had no clue. She stared at Maureen suspiciously and said, although the old witch is powerful, her arithmetic magic is not effective on you. Why does she always say that you are invisible? Don't you think I'm similar to an invisible man in some way? Maureen spread his hands. Your arithmetic divination is ineffective on me. You can't figure out who I am and where I am, right? So this is what invisible man means. Magatha looked at Maureen with fanatical eyes. Her depressed mood was swept away and she became excited again. From the tone of the old witch, she seems to want to study invisible men too, Magatha rubbed her hands and looked at Maureen as if you were a rare animal. If I can study you thoroughly before her, then this will definitely expand a new field of arithmetic divination magic. I have an advantage over her. You will be mine in the future. I can't let her take you away. Thank you so much. Maureen stuffed the glass bottle into his pocket, and was quite helpless about what Magatha said. Every time this girl spoke, it was really easy for others to misunderstand her. But Maureen thought again, is the invisible man really just like this? Originally, he always thought that the invisible man could not be divined, but ever since the Bloody Baron said that to him that day, he no longer had the confidence to say that about the invisible man. What exactly is a real invisible man? Let's go back quickly. Maureen stood up and looked around. Maybe Lucas and the mysterious old witch were standing somewhere in the distance staring at them. The two of them walked into the gate of the gymnasium, took their wands and registered with a security guard, and then hurried to the telephone booth of Hogwarts, where everyone usually rested at this time. Those two people seem to be plotting something against you. We should tell Professor Kane. Magatha said seriously, for your safety, let Professor Kane be alert and don't let you be captured by the bad guys. Maureen pondered for a moment. He really couldn't handle this matter alone. Whether it was the dying old witch or Lucas, who had a lot of black magic items on him, he couldn't deal with it alone. It was a better choice to ask Professor Kane to help. Okay, let's ask Professor Kane to go there quickly. Maureen didn't object this time. They walked into the phone booth together. Where did you two go? Don't you know that the game is about to start? Professor Kane asked puzzledly when he saw Maureen and Magatha running in. Yet, there is such a rich table of dishes, and you only ate so little. It's a waste. Webbery sat on the sofa with a toothpick in his mouth and burped again. He looked very leisurely. But Maureen had no time to pay attention to Webbery. He said to Professor Kane, Professor, we have something urgent to discuss with you alone. Can you come with us? What can't we discuss here? Professor Kane asked in confusion. Everyone looked at Maureen and frowned. Professor, you know, it's the competition period now. My personal matter will affect their mood. Maureen glanced at the others. He thought that the fewer people who knew about this, the better. Okay. Seeing that Maureen and Magatha looked serious, Professor Kane stood up and said, the rest of you should rest and practice. He followed Maureen and Magatha to the corner, took out his wand again, waved it, and conjured a wall to form a small compartment, and then asked, tell me, what's so urgent? Maureen took out his wand and cast a soundproofing spell, then said, Professor, we just found something very unusual. Lucas, I wonder if you have heard about it. Maureen roughly described what happened just now, saw Raphael and Lucas from Durmstrangmeet, and then asked Magatha to calculate, then calculated the Muggle Opera House, and finally focused on describing Lucas and the terrible old witch who could hide it from Magatha. The more Professor Kane listened, the more shocked he looked. Maureen saw Professor Kane's shocked expression, and he hurriedly asked, Professor, you know who that old witch is, right? But Professor Kane scolded them both. You two actually ran away without telling me. And you were almost caught? You are too much, you don't take me seriously at all, right? Professor Kane scolded angrily, you are likely to die. My God, what are you two thinking? Maureen and Magatha blushed. For a moment, they only wanted to tell Professor Kane the news quickly, but forgot that they were running around in violation of the rules. It would be strange if Professor Kane didn't get angry. Maureen, you have never been quiet, right? Professor Kane didn't know how to criticize Maureen, a special child. Professor, actually I have been very quiet recently. Maureen muttered. He has not sneaked out of school this semester. He has been staying in school to practice magic honestly. Being quiet? Then who went to the Forbidden Forest a while ago? Professor Kane said angrily, and who ran into the painting last semester? That's because of a reason. Maureen responded in a low voice. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Running into the painting. Magatha said in confusion. It's none of your business. Professor Kane glared at Magatha. Professor, you know I can't hide this, right? Magatha had already started to calculate. After a moment, she gave up and said frustratedly, I can't figure it out. She couldn't figure out anything related to Maureen. When poker disappeared last semester, Magatha and Professor Victor went to calculate, but they didn't get the result. Now Magatha vaguely thought that poker's disappearance was related to Maureen. Professor Kane said angrily, I didn't ask you to calculate. Be serious, I'm criticizing you now. Magatha lowered her head and accepted the criticism sincerely. You two are so naughty. You kept this from me and ran around everywhere. What should I say if something goes wrong? The first thing you should do when you find out about this is to come to me instead of investigating it yourself. You are going to make me have a heart attack, aren't you? Maureen lost his temper after being scolded, but he knew that if he simply told Professor Kane that he saw someone who looked like Lucas, Professor Kane probably wouldn't believe it, so he could only go by himself. Professor Kane scolded for a minute, then said unhappily, come with me. Where to, Professor? Maureen asked. Where else to go? Of course, to find someone from the Ministry of Magic. Professor Kane walked out of the lounge. Maureen and Magatha looked at each other and hurriedly followed him. Chapter 323 Confused. Professor Kane was very responsible. Although he was angry about Maureen and Magatha's behavior, he did not doubt them because he knew that Maureen and Magatha would not seek criticism for no reason. The wanted criminal Lucas caused quite a stir in the wizarding world during the summer vacation. There were many reports in the newspapers. Professor Kane had also heard of this person. He ran to find Fast of the Ministry of Magic Academic Research Association. Lucas? Professor Kane, do you mean to find Lucas's whereabouts? Fast said solemnly. Lucas had been on the run for several months and had not been caught. This was a serious matter. The entire Ministry of Magic was looking for him. Even though the job of finding suspects did not belong to the Magic Academic Research Association, they were also obliged to investigate the matter. Professor Kane glanced at Maureen and Magatha again, and then said, yes, whether it is true or not, you'd better notify someone to go to the Muggle Opera House to have a look. Lucas is said to be very dangerous. He made a lot of news during the summer vacation. My students followed them recklessly and were discovered. Now they are targeting my students. The address of the Muggle Opera House, here is the address. Magatha handed the paper over at the right time. Fast took the note and nodded seriously. Professor Kane, I understand this matter. I will immediately notify the Aura department to check there. They will deal with it. And this, we used the telescopic ears to eavesdrop on their conversation, and then the old witch used a strange magic to break this. Maureen handed the bottle of black powder to Fast. Maybe you can check what kind of black magic caused this. Maureen only took out a little of this powder to the Ministry of Magic, and kept most of it for himself. Compared with those people in the Ministry of Magic, Maureen trusted the Arnoks more. He was going to show this thing to them when Arnag came back. Fast left quickly. Professor, you didn't tell him about Durmstrang and Raffle. Magatha looked at Fast's back and reminded him. What should I say? Now it's the Transfiguration competition. Hogwarts and Durmstrang are rivals. Will they believe me if I tell them? Will they think I deliberately framed them? Professor Kane glanced at Magatha. If this matter is really related to Raffle, they can find out. We don't need to worry about it. From now on, you two must stand where I can see you. Especially you, Maureen. Professor Kane emphasized again, If the other party is really looking for you, you should stay by my side and don't go anywhere. I understand, Professor. I'm sorry to make you worry. Maureen nodded. He would not be careless about such things. There was no need to be a hero. Alice. Professor Kane was really troubled by Maureen, a child. He was smart and talented, but he was restless. He knew how to apologize when he did something wrong. He didn't know how to get angry. It's good that you know. Professor Kane thought that Lucas was targeting Maureen because Maureen found Lucas's trace and wanted to find a way to shut Maureen up. But Maureen knew that things were not that simple. This matter involved PIing aid, not just Lucas's matter. Unfortunately, he had no evidence. Because there was a game in the afternoon, Professor Kane did not mention this matter to others after returning, and only asked Maureen to prepare for the third round of the competition in the afternoon. Maureen was a bye in the second round, and the third round would take a long time, so Maureen did not need to be too anxious. Magatha had already helped analyze the magic and coping methods of the next round's opponents at the call of Professor Kane. Maureen sat on the sofa in the corner, thinking about what had just happened. What conspiracy was Lucas brewing? What exactly was the plan he was talking about? Unfortunately, before Lucas could tell the plan, Maureen and Magatha were discovered by the old witch, so he still didn't know the purpose of Lucas's appearance here. The only thing he could be sure of now was that Lucas was indeed instructed by PIing aid. Maureen was even certain that the old witch had let them go on purpose, because if she wanted to catch them, she could have cast an apparition spell to block the entire Muggle Opera House, and then attack them. But the old witch didn't do that, because Lucas said that the time hadn't come yet, so the old witch simply scared Maureen and the others away. So what exactly does this time refer to? What does Paingard want to prove through him? There is an answer that only I can give? What answer? Maureen was puzzled. What answer did he know? He was obviously the so-called invisible man, but he knew less about invisible men than anyone else. Everyone knew more than him, and even the ghost Helena was looking for the answer to the invisible man. If only Arnak was here. Thinking of Arnak, Maureen sighed again. Since Arnak and his wife knew that he ran to a place with 2 moons, they left in a hurry and never contacted him again. The latest novel is first published on 69 Shuba. Even the old witch with 1 foot in the coffin seemed to know the Arnaks and was very afraid of them. Maureen now had many questions that needed to be answered by Arnak. The afternoon competition had continued. The second round of contestants were obviously stronger than the first round. At least there was no boring situation of hacking around on the stage with 2 machetes. Each contestant's transfiguration was very powerful and flexible, and they competed back and forth with each other. It was a pity that Maureen had no time to care about this game. When he was in the rest area, he didn't say much, but from time to time he would go to see Raffle and Durmstrang not far away. The players from Durmstrang who participated in the competition this year were very confident, especially Zimmerman. He won the first place in the Dumbledore Cup last year, and his performance this year was also very impressive. When he appeared on the stage, many wizards shouted that the transfiguration performed by this genius student was quite amazing. Zimmerman was a 7th grade boy with short blonde hair. He was tall and strong, with thick eyebrows and tiger eyes, a straight nose, and a handsome appearance. He walked with an inexplicable confidence. His opponent in the second round was a long-haired girl from Boxburton's Academy. The girl looked very nervous, probably because she met Zimmerman, who won the first place in Transfiguration last year. Her face was a little pale. Raffle from Durmstrang was standing under the stage and shouted, "Zimmerman, don't delay too long. Save some energy, understand?" After hearing this, the girl from Boxburton's Academy turned even paler. Maureen stared at Raffle's back, and became more and more confused about him. Did this guy know Lucas' plan? Chapter 324 Luck. This Zimmerman is not simple. His control over transfiguration is really admirable. It is really rare for someone to have such a level of transfiguration at this age. Professor Kane looked at Zimmerman. He didn't need arithmetic divination. He could see with his own eyes why Zimmerman was better than others in transfiguration. After a pause, Professor Kane said, "If I were to find someone who could be compared with him, I think it might be Maureen in 2 years." Professor Kane looked at Maureen, who was sitting in the back row and was distracted, with admiration. But when he thought of Maureen running out without permission at noon, he became a little annoyed. Pearson's face twitched. Since Maureen came to this club, Professor Kane often mentioned Maureen, which made him uncomfortable every time. You know, before Maureen came, Professor Kane regarded him as the first genius of Hogwarts. Professor Kane walked towards Rose and Erdo and comforted them. Don't worry about anything, just use your usual strength. Rose participated in this kind of competition for the first time. She played very well in the first round and defeated a student from Durmstrang. But in the second round, she met Erdo, who was 1 year older than her. She knew Erdo's level of transformation and was a little unsure. Professor, I will. Rose nodded. Magatha, you have calculated who will win between Rose and Erdo, right? Pearson asked. The contestants from other schools have blocking magic, so it is a bit troublesome for Magatha to calculate it. But for the students of Hogwarts, the blocking magic that Professor Kane cast on everyone is very familiar to them, and it can't stop Magatha's arithmetic. Rose and Erdo also looked at Magatha with eager eyes. They didn't doubt Magatha's arithmetic magic at all. If Magatha said who would win, then it is very likely that whoever will win will be the winner. Pearson. Don't ask such meaningless questions. Professor Kane glared at Pearson. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. Magatha doesn't need to calculate such things. Magatha did know the result, but Professor Kane didn't want her to say it out loud to affect Rose and Erdo. Professor, I just feel sorry for the two of them, because in this round of competition, one of the two talented people in our school is destined to be eliminated. Pearson glanced at Maureen, who was silent, and said, and some people don't have the ability, but they have luck. It's better to give this second round bye to those who really need it. If Rose or Erdo is given a bye, then this year our Hogwarts has a greater chance of entering the top 3. Pearson was still upset about Maureen's luck in getting a bye. Pearson, you are not right. Luck can be calculated using magic formulas in arithmetic divination. Luck is also a kind of magic if you know the luck potion. Magatha retorted, there must be a reason why Maureen was able to draw by. Yes, luck is also a kind of illusory magic. For us wizards, luck magic is very important. Professor Kane remembered that Maureen and Magatha had just escaped from the opera house, and couldn't help but sigh that Maureen was really lucky. But then Professor Kane said seriously, don't count on luck. No one can be lucky all the time. When you think you are lucky, then at some point you will start to be unlucky without you noticing. Webbery laughed and said, Pearson, if you want to be lucky, maybe I can give you 2 drops of Phylixir. I brewed a bottle of Phylixir last year, but I haven't used it yet. Webber is also good at potions. His grades in potions are very top-notch, but the use of Phylixir is prohibited in the competition. This can be detected, so no one will use it to participate in the competition. Don't mention it, Webbery. Professor Kane said sternly, I heard from Professor Theodore last time that the Ministry of Magic is discussing whether to ban the potion Phylixir. Ban it? Why? Erdo asked. Professor Kane said seriously, the research on potions in recent years has shown that the Phylixir is a potion that robs other people of their luck. If you drink it, whatever you want to do will go smoothly, and correspondingly, other people will be unhappy. Not only that, Professor Webbery on the side couldn't wait to interrupt. The person who drinks the Phylixir will have good luck for a while, but when the effect of the drug wears off, bad luck will happen to him. The time is not certain, it may be a few hours later, or it may be a month, or several months. In short, you will definitely see the things you fear most and are most unwilling to face. This is the impact of the Phylixir. When you take away other people's luck, it will change the original trajectory of things, causing some bad luck to fall on you. This is a cycle of magical rules. Everyone knows that no one can use magic to make themselves always in a smooth sailing situation. According to a large number of magical studies, the consequences of drinking the Phylixir are, at the least, a broken leg or something in the future. But Webley lowered his voice and said mysteriously, the most serious consequences that the person you are closest to, most dependent on, and most familiar with will die at some point, and you can't do anything about it. Webley's voice became more and more hoarse, even a little eerie and cold. All this is just because you drank the Phylixir. Everyone took a breath of cold air. Webley, don't play tricks. Professor Kane slapped Webley's head in annoyance. The latest novels are first published on the 6th 9-book bar. Webley laughed, touched his head, and said with a playful smile, Professor, relax a little. Okay, don't worry about the Phylixir, no one will drink the Phylixir. Webley, you should study your opponent. Professor Kane said. Constance had already walked back from the stage. His transformation ability was very strong, but his opponent was not weak either. After a stalemate of 15 minutes, he seized an opportunity and turned the stone into a sandstorm, trapping his opponent and winning the game. Very good, Constance's game is over. Next should be Rose and Erdo. You go over there and do your best. Professor Kane patted Rose and Erdo on the shoulders. Rose and Erdo looked at each other and walked silently to the second stage. Then the competition on the third stage also ended, and the referee began to call Weber's name there. Watch me teach the people of Durmstrang a lesson. Don't worry, I can win without the Felixir. Weber ran towards the third stage with a smile. He said this not because he was arrogant, but because he liked to speak without restraint. Magatha pulled the chair to Maureen and asked quietly, "Are you still thinking about that?" Maureen nodded silently. Magatha was calculating quickly again. She glanced at Raffle of Durmstrang and said, "I have been calculating that Raffle since just now. Now it is even worse. The blocking algorithm on him is getting stronger and stronger. I can't calculate it at all." Maureen thought of the old witch again. The other party now knew of Magatha's existence. With her lifelong level of arithmetic and divination, it was more than enough to deal with Magatha now. Chapter 325 The Third Round. In the second round, there were 14 contestants, excluding Maureen who had a bye. They were divided into 7 groups, and 4 competitions were held simultaneously. It took only an hour to finish. Rose lost Erdo. Webley and Constance both entered the third round. With Maureen, the top 8 were 4 from Hogwarts, 2 from Boxburtons and 2 from Durmstrang. This result made Professor Kane very happy. Very good, very good. Everyone performed very well in the third round. Rose, don't be too depressed. You still have a chance next year. Professor Kane patted Rose on the shoulder. Rose didn't look very mentally well. Magatha was comforting Rose. You knew the result a long time ago, didn't you? Rose asked Magatha. Magatha hesitated for a moment and nodded silently. She was familiar with Rose and Erdo, and she knew who would win. Rose looked even sadder. Okay, now it's up to each of the 8 people to see who their opponents are. This year's competition will only select the top 3, which is different from previous years. I hope that our Hogwarts will have better luck and not run into Zimmerman from Durmstrang again in this round, so that we can be sure to get the top 3. Professor Kane has already walked towards the referee's seat, where several people are preparing to draw lots, and professors from the 3 schools are needed to witness it. After Professor Kane left, Pearson said jokingly, "Now is the time to witness the strength. Webbery, I think you need to give 1 or 2 drops of the Felixir to the junior freshman, so that he may draw a good lot." Maureen turned a deaf ear to it. What he cares about now is not the transfiguration competition, but Lucas's affairs. To him, Lucas's affairs are much more important than this kind of competition. The results of the draw on the stage have come out. When Professor Kane came back, he smiled bitterly. "Professor, how is it? Did anyone draw Zimmerman?" Magatha asked. Professor Kane nodded and looked at Erdo. "Erdo, your opponent is Zimmerman." Erdo's face turned pale, and he gritted his teeth, a little unwilling. Zimmerman, who won the first place in the transfiguration competition last year, basically has no chance of winning this year. Don't be discouraged, you will have to face some opponents. Professor Kane patted Erdo on the shoulder, and then said, "Sure enough, you have to pay a price after being too lucky. Webley, your opponent is Cecilia, who won the second place last year, a student of Boxburton's Academy." Webley smiled and said, "It's that lady. Great, I always think she is very beautiful. Finally, I have the opportunity to ask for her contact information." Everyone stared at Webley, who was still in the mood to joke. "Then what about Maureen and Constance?" Magatha asked again. Professor Kane was silent for a moment, and said helplessly, "I said that the luck has run out in the last round. Constance's opponent is Maureen." Everyone was stunned. Pearson laughed out loud. "Webbery, I just said that you should give him 1 or 2 drops of Felixir. See, some people's luck has finally run out." Constance also glanced at Maureen proudly, with a hint of imperceptible joy in his eyes. For him, this lot was already the best lot. Some people's luck has run out, but at least our school still has some luck. We drew our own people, which means that at least one person in our school can break into the top 4. This result is already very good," Constance said lightly. Everyone looked at Maureen in the corner, waiting for Maureen's reaction, but Maureen just sat there, staring at the ground and thought. "Maureen!" Professor Kane called out. "What's wrong?" Maureen looked up in confusion. "Oh, sorry, Professor, I was distracted just now. Who is my opponent?" He thought about Lucas for a long time, and he didn't hear what Pearson and Constance said just now. Everyone looked at each other, and was quite surprised by Maureen's reaction. "Constance, your opponent is Constance, Maureen," Professor Kane said. "Okay." Maureen continued to lower his head and ponder his own affairs. "That's it?" Everyone was stunned again. Maureen just had this reaction? Pretending to be calm, pretending to be very good. Pearson said sarcastically. "Shut up, Pearson." Magatha said dissatisfiedly. "Maureen has other things to worry about." Of course he can worry about other things now. After all, he also knows the final result of this game. His luck has run out, right? Pearson sneered. "Pearson." Professor Kane gave Pearson a warning look, and Pearson shut his mouth. "The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar." Professor Kane walked up to Maureen and said, "Don't think too much, just play your normal level." "I know, Professor." Maureen nodded. There was no competition in his mind at all. It was all messy thoughts, which were scattered and had no focus. After Lucas said that the time was not right, he always felt that something was wrong. Lucas could have caught him, but he didn't do it. What was he waiting for? At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the third round of the competition had begun. In the third round, 8 people were divided into 4 groups, and 4 competition platforms were held at the same time. Maureen and Constance were on the 4th competition platform, Zimmerman and Erdo were on the 3rd competition platform, and Weber and Cecilia were on the 2nd competition platform. Magatha kept looking at Maureen from the side. "Are you worried about Constance? Or are you worried about Lucas?" She wrote and calculated, and sometimes she calculated Constance, and sometimes she calculated Lucas, which made her very upset. But just as the competition was about to start, Magatha suddenly exclaimed, and the pen fell from the air to the ground. "What's wrong, Magatha?" Maureen asked curiously. Magatha opened her mouth and looked around in some doubt. "I was studying you just now, but I couldn't figure it out, so I gave up and turned to calculate that powerful old witch. You know, it's strange that I have been blocked by her algorithm from just now until now." "Then what?" Maureen asked impatiently. Magatha picked up the pen and carefully checked her magic formula again, and then said in shock, "Now I can calculate her." "You can calculate her?" Maureen was shocked and asked quickly, "Where's she?" Magatha stood up and walked outside the rest area, looking around the audience. There were 1,000 or 2,000 wizards cheering in the audience, countless magic ribbons floating in the air, and colorful advertising banners. In the stadium, she came to the stadium. Magatha said, "End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video."